They suffered stab wounds in the attack and are now being looked after in hospital.
We need to make sure that when people carry out these activities, they feel the full force of the law. People think they can get away with this. The person who firebombed a few weeks ago is out on bail. That's not full force of the law.
This crisis, it's a crisis for all of us. It's not enough to simply say we stand with Jewish communities. Of course we do, but we must show it and act it. And the responsibility lies with each and every one of us, because it is our fight too.
Let's stop importing people from countries where anti-Semitism is the norm. And if the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, in his infinite wisdom and belief in diversity, thinks that's the sort of diverse view that it's OK to have on the streets of London and the police don't get involved, don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
You keep getting proven right every single time. Jews are not safe in this country.
Well, absolutely. No one can be surprised or feeling shocked that this happened. No Jew certainly is. I mean, we had Zach Balansky last week saying this was just a perceived threat. Well, we can see this isn't any perception. This is real. This is happening on the streets. This isn't just an anti-Semitic terror attack. This is an attack on Britain, on the Western liberal democracy and values.
The first politician that uses the word shocking, I might just go and throttle him, because this is anything but shocking. It's the most expected thing is almost overdue, if you ask me, because, I mean, I just left Israel last week. I thought it would be the last time we were woken up by explosions, but clearly not.
The Jewish community is our community, and their safety is our safety. And we have to make it absolutely clear, robust, strong leadership, and this has to stop, because otherwise it's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Our plan is a complete step change in how we protect communities, moving beyond piecemeal responses to a sustained nationwide effort, one that ensures that people across the United Kingdom can live freely and without fear.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning to you. Welcome to Tuesday. What is it? The 16th of June, Royal Ascot Week. We're up and at it nice and early. Listen, welcome to the show as ever, the home of common sense, the home of free speech, and it's where the alarm clock Brits come to have your views spoken or said on the news of the day. Listen, as ever with this show, it's an ongoing thing, and we can throw out what's there, but it's down to you, whatever you think. Take part, my friends, because when you do, it gives me so much more time to work out what's coming next. Tom is in 0344 499 1000, the only number you need. You can send us a voice note. Who's going to be... what have I got today? Oh, hold on. Some chocolate rice cakes for the first voice note of the day. There you go. Also, we'll give away a future cabinet minister in the first hour as well, which is quite interesting. But anyway, 0344 499 1000, you text to 87222. What are we waking up to? Well, we learn, this is an extraordinary story, cue straight face. We learned this morning that Russia was behind the firebombing of a house and car linked to Sir Keir Starmer. Yesterday, two men were... Stop, I'm trying to be serious. Were found guilty of conspiring to carry out arson attacks on property and a car linked to the Prime Minister. The court heard that they were recruited online by a Russian-speaking Telegram user. He was called El Money. Oh, all right, El Money. Oh, my name is El Money. I don't know. That sounds Spanish to me, but I'm not being conspiratorial. Who apparently promised the men payment if they bombed Starmer's front door. Before anybody says anything. But then Russia started the conspiracy theory that many people might have heard or conspired to believe or disbelieve, that it was in fact two Ukrainian rent boys. You heard me right. 6:05, so apparently two Ukrainian rent boys. They were not. That was a conspiracy theory led by a Russian called El Money. Anyway, obviously, Russia was behind it. It's an outrageous attack on our Prime Minister's liberty. They firebombed his front door. It was the front, not the back. It was the front door, and also his car. And yesterday they were dealt with severely. So we'd love to know your thoughts on that. Stop it, please. 0344 499 1000. The other big news is, you know, we are the home of free speech. But let me ask you this: should free speech be anonymous? Yesterday, of course, Starmer brought in his desire to make sure that anybody under 16 was checked and not able to just go online. Many of you supporting that, many not. Several hundred listeners saying to us across the morning and the day that actually, what is this going to lead to? And it turns out as well that Apple and Google will be forced to check your age, and you'll need a selfie and possibly bank details as well after the government social media ban. If you want to ask a question or make a comment on X, you're going to have to verify it by your details. Are you happy to prove who you are and what you want to do just in order to post a tweet, or does it make us more accountable online? Is it part of, you know, a man rushing through something for his legacy? Yet again, the state takes control. Would love to know from you on that. Was one on 0344 499 1000. Current, the Sun today, marvellous. England, of course, tomorrow we'll have herring redknaps, very exciting. Anyway, here's the thing. Wes Streeting, do you remember him? Health Secretary who left government. He's made no secret of the comment that he's going to stand against Keir Starmer. He says, ignore the killjoys and fly the flag. The flag? What's the flag? The flag with pride. Isn't that lovely to hear? Free from the constraints of a cabinet who get you arrested, frankly, this government, if you fly the flag or if you dare to say anything. Wes Streeting. Is he trying to play the game here? Ignore the killjoys and fly the pride. No, not fly the flag with pride. That's Wes Streeting. Also, and I have to do this, I really don't want to talk about it because I'll probably end up being fired. Front page of the Sun today. This sort of story is so appalling. It's the story of Preston Davey, who was adopted by two men and was treated so appallingly, abused and murdered. Both I think the teacher Jamie Varley and his partner John McGowan Fazakali were found guilty of cruelty, sexual assault and murder yesterday. I have to tell you, for me, as a father of six, I can't have it, and I'll get into trouble, so I don't want to talk about it if you do. Another sentence, by the way, that's really interesting. The 21-year prison sentence handed to Henry Novak's murderer has been referred to the Court of Appeal. This is good. Vikram Digra, who we know, pretended that it was a racist attack, and Henry's last words, bless him, it caused outrage in this country, was being read his rights by the police, not his last rights, dying in a road, not even believed by the bloody police. That caused so much trouble. But Vikram Digra, I said it last week, 21 years or rot in hell for all eternity. What do you make of all of that? 0344 499 1000. We're going to say good morning to a man who has climbed the greasy pole of politics to the point where 2 weeks ago, he found himself on the front bench in the House of Commons next to his boss, Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, but he got told off by his mother because he was seen biting his nails. We've tried etiquette. Matthew Vickers, good morning.
Good morning. I've got that stuff now. It tastes awful. If you put it on, it stops you biting your nails.
Have you?
Let's see how it comes on.
Yeah.
See how it works.
Now, we're just going to start slightly differently to talk about the news because this is brilliant. I always talk about what happens off the air. I came in this morning and Matt goes, Jez, big moment tomorrow. I've been granted a question at Prime Minister's Question Time. Have you, Matt? He's not there. What? He's at the G7. Oh, no. That means I've got to ask Lammy a question, so we thought we'd have a bit of fun. 50 minutes. What should Matt Vickers ask Calamity Lammy tomorrow? Your question could be asked in the House of Commons. You're happy to do that?
It's a thing. Bring it on.
87222. What would you like Matt Vickers to ask David Lammy, apart from how the hell did you get this job, you numpty? Interesting, though. So you have to be granted a question. You
this
can't
could
just,
get messy. I'm interested to hear these suggestions, actually.
You've promised. You've promised. Do you know what I'm saying?
So basically, it's a raffle. You put your name in. Depending on how friendly with the speaker you are, you may or may not be more likely to get a question. It's a draw, so you submit to say, yes, I want to ask a question every week. You might not get picked for ages. Some of my friends, I don't know what they're doing, but they get picked frequently. Some of us get picked very rarely. You might remember the last time I asked a question, I asked about the Great British Pub and saving the Great British Pub. we'll see what comes tomorrow. We'll see what people have to say.
I mean, is that PR just to look good in front of your constituents? I'm being completely straight.
I think it depends. I mean, it is a chance to ask a question, to bring... I mean, how many people are watching that thing tomorrow? It's a chance to make the Prime Minister... Well, not the Prime Minister tomorrow. It's a chance to make David Lammy, the government, 650 MPs who are watching it...
I've got one.
...and the public...
I've got one straight away. I've got one straight away. How can a man as completely inept as you complete idiot, manage to get to the role of Deputy Prime Minister?
What do we think he'd say in response? What do we think he'd say in response? That's the other thing.
Oh, you're not allowed insults. That's obviously why. No, but I'm being serious. The jury trials is the thing. How can he ban jury trials? Oh, so much stuff.
Plenty to go out.
Mandelson, digital ID. What should Matt Vickers ask the Deputy Prime Minister tomorrow at Prime Minister's Question Time? He's won the raffle. That sounds such a stupid thing. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. And I'm going to start, actually, because it is on the front page of The Sun. It's an appalling story. Good morning to Damon in Wigan. He says, I'm crying, Jez. So we're here again with Sessions. When will we learn after another little angel has been taken away from us? Since Baby P was killed years back, nothing has been learnt by social workers and establishment departments. When is Britain finally going to hold all these departments for their failure again and again? I cannot carry on as a grown man seeing these poor kids suffering so abominably. I want to say about social workers, of course, absolutely they should be put to task like those police last week. There's hundreds of social workers that do incredible work that never, ever get talked about because, quite rightly, these appalling stories always, quite rightly, make the media, right?
I think when you know what, we read stories. Every week we talk about stories about people doing terrible things. These are not people, these are monsters.
Yeah.
How you would even consider that human beings would be capable of doing that to that small bit, it's just beyond all... And you didn't think you could speak to someone in the street who could go away and do such a horrific
and then you have this terrible, terrible moment in your head. I consider myself... I mean, people say I'm opinionated, but I do try and... But they don't have right to liberty in the world I want to live in. I've got 6 kids.
Human rights. They're not humans, they're monsters.
Precisely. And they'll get some lawyer and they'll be in some jail and it'll cost the taxpayer, what, £80,000 a year forever? I can't have it. I think it's so abhorrent that I think there are certain crimes that are so abhorrent and so against anything that any of us believe in. I don't want you. I mean, I know, you know what, I can't have it. It makes me sick.
I think and then you hear this 8 chances were missed. Apparently, the evidence was there 8 times. They should have questioned it and didn't question it. But I think you are also right. These social workers on the front line go into some of the most horrific situations, to see some of the most vile...
And maybe people will be surprised I would say that, but yeah. I think we should always call out. But as much as we said last week with those disastrous coppers who messed terribly, terribly incompetent with Henry Novak, and then the bigger issue of above, of course social workers should be called out, and anybody that's allowed that disgusting story to should lose their job and be prosecuted. But there are hundreds, thousands who do fantastic work.
Who do in awful circumstances. They go into these, well, hopefully not this sort of situation, but into appalling, awful situations day in, day out. They see kids who are struggling in all sorts of circumstances. And to be honest, what would give you an indication that 2 human beings, supposedly, would be capable of doing that to a child is unbelievable. It takes all this human rights mumbo-jumbo, and you think, well, what rights should these people actually be entitled to if they're willing to do that to a child?
It says front page of the Times today, it's all over the Sun. Front page of the Sun, authorities missed up to 8 chances to save this abused child's life. I don't want to get off on the wrong track, but these people should be brought to justice. And those 2. I told you off air I got into trouble before years ago, so I'm not going to say anything. I think people would know. Front page of the Sun as well. Let's get to it. Age checks on phones to access social media. Yesterday, Keir Starmer, in what some papers are calling a rush job to cement his legacy. You've got one of complete hopelessness. You can't change it. He rushed through this. Under 16s can't access certain social media platforms. Audience was split. Some would say good. I go with Lord Hannan. Is it Hannan? Lord Hannan, isn't it? Hannan, yeah. He's on later. He wrote a piece which said, of course, we don't want our kids subjected to this stuff. High-tech companies should take responsibility, but the state needs to understand, or rather parents need to understand, this has to be at home. I was talking to my wife last night. You have to have control. People will say, oh, you can't. But it goes further, Matt Vickers, because it turns out that Apple and Google will be forced to need from human beings a selfie or bank details or physical ID to just be able to post a comment or a tweet. That is the beginning of the end of free speech, isn't it?
No. So I actually think it's right that we ban under 16s. If you're sat at home now and you're wondering why, and you think, why on earth are they doing this? This is a lockdown on freedom of speech. You should go and have a little look at Kemi's roundtable with a load of parents. I remember sitting listening to those parents. If you had any doubt in your mind, you listen to these parents whose kids have been subjected to some of the most awful things. Kids who've lost their life. Parents who have lost their children because of the monster that is social media. This thing goes home with them, it's in their bedroom with them. Some of the most vile, sick people on the planet. We've just been talking about some of them.
Yep.
Those people can get at your children via a phone,
you agree
via
with
a device. So I think for all of those reasons that don't even occur to us until you hear these parents' stories about kids who've committed suicide, kids who've been victims of sick, awful monsters online. The minute you see that, you think, we do have to do something about it. And actually, the idea that I completely oppose mandatory digital ID, but it's about the detail and how you do it. Actually, your phone now, if you want to buy an app, you buy it with a credit card or a debit card.
I don't know how to do that.
Exactly. You wouldn't be able to control the kids then, would you?
I mean, it'd be... Well, I do, but
if you want something on your phone now, you buy it with an app. You buy the app using Apple, which has your credit card details because you're buying the damn... Everything already works through that. If it's done in that way,
So you don't think that Apple and Google demanding a selfie or bank details or physical ID is the beginning of this government/state controlling almost everything about what we know and what we do and where we go?
It's
what we
all
buy?
about the detail. Is it right that we stop those monsters getting into our kids' bedrooms? Yes, it is. Is it something that
What about tech companies? Don't they have a responsibility?
Well, it's something yeah, but you look at, I mean, some of these things that the kids play, they're not always tackled via Facebook or Twitter.
No.
They're tackled via kids' computer games, things that are designed
So the
online
Tories
for
support
kids to interact
Keir
with.
Starmer on this?
We brought it to a vote 3 times in the House of Commons, and 3 times Labour MPs voted against it. All of a sudden he's in favour.
Why?
Probably because his backbenchers are peed off. Probably because his neck's on the line. He's about to go, and apparently it's a legacy. I mean, if this is Starmer's legacy, crikey. But I think it's all about
checks on
moderation.
phones to access social media. Front page of the Times. What do you make of that? 0344 499 1000. Matt, very passionate, the defence there of why under 16s need to be controlled. I mean, I said something yesterday which sort of resonated a little bit. What I don't get about it on a further scale is at 15 years, 364 days, I'm going to tell my boy that he can't go online, but 12 hours later he can vote for you in a general election or not.
I think the general election point is a very, very strong one.
How can you vote at 16, for Christ's sake? That's ludicrous, isn't it?
I think it is, Matt.
I mean,
that's
like open your borders and bring people in who will vote for me or say I don't think under 16 to vote for this Labour government, but I don't know.
I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to make a prediction.
We got a jingle.
I
Vickers
can foresee this being another U-turn, because when he brought it about, all these 16-year-olds were going to vote for the Labour Party. Now they're not. He might change his mind. We'll see.
Joanna from Salisbury says, I'm really sad I won't be able to watch you on YouTube anymore, Jez, or contribute, as I'm a granny without digital ID. This is an interesting point. So everybody that watches this, the 15 people, some of them, but you're right. But is it encroaching on our rights? Is so much more, and this is another example, just eating up our freedoms? This is a state... I don't want to sound like some of them do about this, but is it state control or is it just safety?
It's about the detail. It's about the detail, isn't it? If you've got an iPhone now...
Well, I don't really know how to work
if you've got a random branded device, you probably have an account on it.
Yeah.
And to get that account, you had to give those people your ID. If it's as simple as that, game on. If it's some, massive digital database that they're going to create and suck all this data and allow people to use it as and where they wish, that's a problem. It's all about the detail and where it goes to. Should we be protecting kids under 16 from social media? Yes, we should.
And certainly the story on the front page of The Sun this morning would say that maybe, as Matt Vickers says, some sort of check on social media is relevant, the dark web and all that. 6:20 on Tuesday morning. Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Tory party, tomorrow's been granted a question in the House of Commons. He was excited. He came in this morning and went, I'm going to ask the Prime Minister a question, Jez. And I went, he's not there. He's at the G7 trying to talk to Trump, who doesn't give a toss. Anyway, so you've got Lammy. So your suggestions, 87222. Ready? Pin back your logos. Yes. Matt Vickers, well, it says bring back hanging and hang both those sick... Yeah, well, we can't... Well, yes. Well, Russ, I've got to be honest, couldn't disagree, but that's another debate. My question for Lammy, it's from Bill in Cheshire. How grateful are you to the Tories for them being so useless over a 14-year period that enabled a bunch of complete bleeding clowns like you to get into office?
Fair point.
Don't think you're going to ask that one.
We let them in.
Roger's in Hounslow. I love your honesty, man. Can Matt Vickers ask David Lammy, how the hell did you come up with the figure of 18 trillion for reparations to the Caribbean countries for the slave trade? No, it didn't land with Vickers. That hasn't landed. Question for Lammy Vickers. What monarch succeeded Elizabeth II? Yes! Could the right honourable gentleman who succeeded the Queen when she died 3 years ago? Numpty.
Do we think he'll have learnt the lesson?
No!
Sure.
I don't think it's about that. It's about regaining control of our court. Good morning, Jezza. Gary here in your favourite part of Wales, Brecon. I said Brecon yesterday and it went down wrong. Have you been to Brecon?
I haven't.
No. Citizen Starmer has finally gone totally mad. In my opinion, he wants to control everything we do. Thoughts on that? Oh, Liam on Lammy. Morning, Lee.
Morning, Matt. Morning, Jezza. I've got one for you. Ask Mr. Lammy what the definition of useless is. That'd be amusing for us to watch. Anyway, have a great show, guys.
So you literally couldn't do that. You can't be disrespectful. It's got to be something technical.
You can't accuse him of lying. You can't do anything that's
even when
disrespectful. Who was it? Was it half of the... Was it... Oh, what was it? One of the Labour MPs I remember once saying that half of the government weren't lies in order to insinuate the other half could be. So you could be a bit clever and sassy with it and work your way around it. But no, it's probably Do you get told by the powers that be in the Tory party what, they go, Vickers from the Stockton, that young man with the beard who bites his nails, he's got a question. So, Chief Whip, go and tell the little blighter what I want him to ask. Do they do that? Is it like that? No. I'll just go and ask what I think I should ask tomorrow. Nobody gets to check it. Could get into trouble. But I definitely won't bite my nails, I promise you that.
OK, well, listen, what do you think Matt Vickers should ask David Lammy? He was very excited when he came into work this morning because he's been granted a question with the Prime Minister, who's at G7 and won't be there. So it's Lammy, but he will ask your question. You can tune in and see Matt Vickers going, what do you call him, Lammy? Do you have to call him the right...
the Deputy Prime Minister.
No, but you say, does the Deputy Prime Minister understand? Do you say the Right Honourable Gentleman? What do you say?
So you speak through the speaker, don't you? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Or does the Prime Minister, does the Deputy Prime Minister, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So you're always
coming in my ears,
through
Chorley
the chair,
FM, lovely. Sir Lindsay and Chorley. 0344, Joanna, ask Lammy, was it the total he spends on his government... What is the total that he spends on his government procurement card? Interesting one. Kieran, they've really gone for this story as well. Jez, I agree with protecting our children from monsters online, but isn't it an oxymoron when our justice system doesn't hand down the appropriate punishment for people that harm kids? That's a really good point.
Yeah. It's clear for all to see. We'll see what comes out of this, because his sentencing... When is sentencing on this? Is imminent. But this is the law of the law. You're not going to find many creatures on the face of the earth that are as vile as those two.
But they are here, and I don't know. As I said, I'll probably get into trouble, so it's best I don't say anything. But I don't believe there should be a liberty in a society I live in, or sane human people like do. 0344 499 1000. So we kicked off. We're talking social media ban yesterday and under 16s. And we wake up today, front page of the Time. Age checks on phones to access social media. What do you make of that? The horrendous story on the front of the Sun, murdered by twisted dad and failed by the system. 8 chances were missed by social workers. Another baby P, poor Preston Davey. Maybe the control is, as Matt Vickers said, some way that we will deal with horrendous situations like that. Morning, Phil.
Hi, Jeremy. It's Phil from Warrington. Just a thought on the social media ban for under 16s. If any under 16s get through this and manage to get on social media, is that going to stop the paedophiles getting charged with anything because they can claim that they thought they were 16 because they were on social media? I don't think the government have thought of that, have they? Cheers.
got some breaking news that has just come in. TalkSport have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:25. It's Tuesday morning. This is Talk, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Brit. Vice Chairman of the Tory Party, Matt Vickers, is here. He's like a schoolboy with a bag of sweets. That didn't sound right, but he's been granted a question tomorrow at Prime Minister's Question, and we offer you some. No other breakfast show offers you this. You can set the question he asked David Lammy, Calamity Lammy, tomorrow afternoon. 87222. Morning, Dave.
Well, Matt, you could absolutely melt him down. A couple of questions you could ask him. If an orange is called an orange, why isn't a banana called a yellow? Wait for his response. Or if a fly is called a fly, why ain't a spider called a walk?
What am I supposed to do? Can you imagine? Mr. Speaker, can I ask the Deputy Prime Minister, if an orange is called an orange, why isn't a banana called yellow? Are you laughing?
The thing is, it would actually be interesting to see what he would come back with. He operates on an alternative sphere, doesn't he?
Does he know what your question's going to be?
No. They do ask, and you can tell them.
You're not
Sometimes
going
it's
to.
funnier to tell them you're going to ask something you're not going to ask, you know what I mean?
Oh, listen to this. This is like being in the school grounds. So I'm going to ask you a question about judging. So he gets all prime, and then you go, no, something else. Question for Lammy. What school did he go to so I don't send my kids there? Says Russ. That's the... I've never... Christ, you turned into Jimmy Carr, man. What's happened to that laugh?
Oh, that is a winner.
That's
a
brilliant.
winner. So far, best
Can I just ask the Deputy Prime Minister, has he got kids? What school do you send your kids to? Why are you asking? So I don't bloody well send them there. Morning, Matt and Jez. Ask Lammy, does he still take taxis abroad from Sean Marshall in Kidderminster? What's that? Is that a story?
I don't know.
Oh, he had his luggage on. Jules in London. Good morning, Jez and Matt. Question for Jamie Lammy. What is your favourite cheese? What? Sorry, blimey. Guy, morning, Jez and Matt. Ask Lammy, has he paid his fine for not having a fishing licence when he got his rod out with J.D. Vance? I think I know what I meant by that. That's true, isn't it?
The favourite so far has to be which school did he go to?
You like that?
That's got me there.
OK, another one for Lammy. 1 add 1 is... Oh, mate, I'm going to watch Prime Minister's Question Time tomorrow. Let's move on. Keep them coming. What should Matt Vickers ask David Lammy? 87222. So listen, there's a big news story all over every newspaper. Double page here in the Mail today. This is the story that Russia was apparently behind the firebombing of a house and a car linked to our Prime Minister. Cue serious face. Yesterday, 2 men were found guilty of conspiring to carry out arson attacks on a property in a car linked to the Prime Minister. The court heard they were recruited online by a Russian-speaking Telegram user called Elmani. Now, I don't know about a Russian sounding hello, Elman, but I mean, I could be wrong. You'd expect him to call Grovinsky or something, you know, but I mean, it didn't work. Anyway, he promised the two payment if they bombed Starmer's front door and his car, and then Russia started the conspiracy theory that it was revenge by 2 Ukrainian rent boys. I don't know anything about this story. Here it is here. Russian spy orchestrated arson attacks on PM, then started wild conspiracy theory that it was revenge by 2... Had you heard about this? I hadn't heard anything to do with this at all.
No. I never tune into Twitter. It's just not a thing. I mean, there is a serious point, isn't there? There is a serious point about the dangerous world we live in and the Russian influence and actually about the security of people in public life, and the thing that we're reminded of is 10 years since Joe Cox died. There are serious points there about the protection of people in politics, about people in public life, but actually the idea that there's some Russian secret effort to destabilise this country via the... I mean, you'd leave him in office and you'd just stop distracting. You know, you leave him in office, let him destroy the country, and then you stop distracting because he's kind of doing a pretty canny job of blowing himself up. So
wow. So these
bizarre.
Two young, were they rent boys, or was that...
I'm not that familiar with them, to be fair to you.
Well, it's just that there was apparently... I mean, I don't know anything, and I will plead the fifth. There apparently were conspiracies. I don't look on X. I've never heard it, Your Honour. And there were conspiracy theories, and, of course, wild conspiracy theories about what's going on. And, of course, the papers are now saying that this was in fact, Russian. And so his front door was firebombed, wasn't it? Why are you laughing? It wasn't his back door, it was his front door. And his car, it wasn't a van, it was a car. And to be fair, you're right, there is a security issue. But there's also a huge debate, isn't there? Because, I don't know, it sort of follows him around a bit, doesn't it? Bad news.
Yeah, it kind of does get a few of these rumours in the rumour mill.
I mean, you could say on the basis of yesterday, people were saying, if you look at the front of... the Daily Telegraph, Starmer's social media ban is the rush job. I mean, he was trying to bring a social media ban through the back door quite quickly, wasn't he?
God, yes. I think there's always going to be questions around.
I don't do X. I've never been on X. I think it's a cess. I don't get involved.
It is a cesspit. It is a cesspit.
Sorry, a cesspit of filth.
Sometimes you know, smoke, fire, and all that.
I knew nothing about this story, Your Honour, until I came in this morning and Christian said this. I mean, this is extraordinary. Of course, the safety of our Prime Minister and people in public life is very, very important. But why would Russia start a conspiracy theory that two rent boys, allegedly from Ukraine, or was it somewhere else, off Grindr? I've no idea what that is either. It's just an extraordinary story, isn't it?
Extraordinary story. Smoke, fire...
I think you should ask this tomorrow. Does the Deputy Prime Minister... So if you have woken up, 0344 499 1000, but you text Matt Vickers 87222, Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party, tomorrow, very excited to be asking a question to David Lammy, because the Prime Minister's at G7. Pablo. You see, now Pablo sounds more like El Money than Gravinsky, OK? I'm just saying... Hello, Pablo, isn't it? Right, not bleeding the Russian diplomat called El Money. It doesn't make sense. I'm not trying to pull... I mean, I'm not saying... I would ask David Lammy what digital ID is likely to be required to prove you are a complete and utter idiot. No, that didn't wash. Jez, listening to Matt Vickers, so Kemi had a few parents agreeing with the ban. Have those parents not got any control over their kids? I believe it should start at home. It's a good point.
I tell you what, actually, that requires a response. If you doubt this, you definitely should go on, have a Google or whatever, you could tweet, see the stories of these parents and what happened to the kids. They weren't parents who had no clue what was going on with the kids. They were normal parents whose kids were using all sorts of apps that many of us would allow kids to use. It's roadblocks, like literally children's apps on phones, apps that kids, you just assume, these monsters like we've heard about this morning, get into these things.
So my son plays Roblox, and I know nothing about computers, but Mrs. K, who's a legend at everything, there are controls that she puts on and timing controls and stuff like that. I feel inclined to tell you a story very briefly, although I can see Christian's got that look on his face. I don't know about this. I don't want to embarrass, but one of my children, years and years and years ago, maybe I was married to somebody else, and well, anyway, he used to spend an enormous amount of time in his bedroom, age 6 or 7, on his computer. I remember coming home one day and saying, what is it? He's obsessed with Pirates of the Caribbean. Went up, and he was 6, he typed in booby, movies, and he'd spelt it Booobie, MOOV, and honestly, he was 6, and I went downstairs. There were pictures of women's... I'm not lying. Booby movies at 6. And, I mean, she went mad and said this. And I was very angry with him, / very proud. And, no, I'm joking. And so I do understand we need to have controls. It's just that, of course, as with everything, we want to protect our kids, but also you have to make sure that this isn't, because there isn't much about this government that I think many people would think there isn't an ulterior motive in so much of what they do. That would be the truth.
The devil is in the detail, and actually, when we're looking at some of the most vile creatures we've ever seen, and when you look, those sorts of people sit in darkened rooms. They spend all day doing this sort of vile stuff to work the workarounds. And an app which I understand, Roadblocks, is like designed for kids to play on. These people are in there en masse.
Completely
They're vile
agree.
creatures who are 10 steps ahead of us. It's not about parents being switched on or not switched on. It's about actually protecting every kid. And the kids who are most likely to be subject to this stuff come from different sorts of homes. There might not be kids in our kids or nice sisters. Every kid needs protecting from those monsters. And actually, if you listen to the stories that Kemi had with this roundtable, these parents were switched on. They knew what they were doing with the
I will absolutely acknowledge
off the charts.
I will absolutely acknowledge that can happen. And any parent who says it can't, I can sit here and say, of course, parents. I do think parents should pay more attention. I do think that the argument that, oh, it's the school's fault or it's the government's fault, but there are many instances. I mean, people were saying yesterday, I didn't even know what a VPN was. I only know what a VPN is, but a VPN, you can get access. And within apparently hours of him announcing this, people have come up with ways of beating this system. So, yeah, it's very important. Sarah, what are your thoughts, my darling?
Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, Matt. It's Sarah from Croydon. Just talking about this online safety for children. I believe if the government were really, really that serious, then why don't they get knives off the streets? Why don't they crack down on that? Jail sentences if you're carrying a knife. I believe that's actually law, but it's just not upheld. Oh, well. What about stopping unvetted men arriving here illegally in our country and being put in our communities, people that we don't know, who have no respect for our culture, our values? And what about automatic prison sentences for paedophiles? I don't know, just a thought. That might be a good idea, mightn't it? So I just think this is a smokescreen to get digital ID through the back door, and I don't want anything to do with it. Many thanks.
Thoughts?
I think, do you know what? There's a very, very valid point there about policing and law enforcement. We're paying more tax than we have ever paid.
Didn't think I'd say that after you lot, at the end of you lot. I never thought I'd say that, but you're right.
Three things put tax up. Wars, pandemics, Labour governments. We are paying more tax than we've ever paid. What do you think's happened to the number of police on our streets since this Labour government came to office?
Gone.
We have reduced the number of police. They're closing police stations in central London. They're letting criminals, vile, sick criminals, out of prison early. Everything is going the wrong way on that front.
I've got the question, and I should have remembered this. Teresa, you're spot on. JK, you told me you'd do this. Surely Matt should ask Lammy when there's going to be a minute's silence in the House of Commons and the House of Lords for Henry Novak. Do you know what? That is actually... She said, and you said you'd ask, and several MPs, that's really interesting. Do you know, that's really interesting.
It's a very, very valid point.
It's a really good question, that, because they did it with the Black Lives Matter. Nobody liked... Well, he was a career criminal. Not the way he died was appalling, right? But the world went mad for George Floyd. And what concerns me about Henry Novak, I know we reported overnight that the Court of Appeal is looking at the sentence for that piece of whatever, Vikram Digwa, but that kid died on the streets. That's a relevant
in the most horrific way.
That's a good question.
In the most vile way, let down by the police who were meant to be there to help him.
What do you say to Teresa? That's a good question.
I've actually written to the Speaker of the House of Commons on this to ask the question, and I haven't had a response yet.
Have you really?
I have. I wrote to him after we had a discussion on... I don't know who was that asked me.
It was Teresa before. Teresa, I tell you the thing about this boy. He is absolutely straight down the line about what he says he's going to do, and he'll have done that, and he'll have written to the Speaker. Fair play. Keep us updated on that.
I will. I actually expected to have had a response by now, but I haven't, which might mean he's doing something about it or might not. But all right. I'm sure we will get a response.
Matthew from Norfolk. Can Matt Vickers, who I love... ask Lammy...
Who doesn't love me? Who doesn't love me?
My mother? Because she's dead. No, my mother would. If voters judge governments by results rather than intentions, what results should the public point to as evidence, Mr Deputy Speaker, that current immigration and border policies are actually working in the United Kingdom?
Yeah, well...
That's a great question as well.
The pudding.
Honestly, Mr Vickers, wow, could ask Catastrophe Lammy if when he was a barrister he would have preferred to defend a client in front of a jury or a state judge. Getting better and better, this. Was he he was a lawyer?
It's scary, isn't it? It's very, very scary.
Yeah, but hold on a second. The Chancellor said she was an economist and turned out to be a filing clerk.
She is... People play down her CV. She is an astrophysicist. She can find black holes where nobody else ever could. She's incredibly good at that.
Talking about black holes, after the firebomb incident, I can't even... This is... Are you mind reading this? Are we reading this? Could you ask Lammy if Starmer's backdoor security is up to scratch, says Chris in Creedham. I don't know what to say. I love you you lot. Steve, morning, Jess. I think Matt should ask Lammy this. Many working people voted Labour, believing their living standards would improve. Can you point to one objective measure by which the average working family is demonstrably better off today than when you lot took power?
Well, working families are. People who work are paying more and more in tax. People who don't work are getting more and more in benefits. There are people who are better off. It just happens to be the people who can't be asked to go to work.
Absolutely. Jason's in Pompey. As with all these progressive laws, they always start with the best intentions, protect the kids, assisted dying. We need to imagine the worst government we can think of and what they would do with the same power, times by 10. In my opinion, this is digital ID by the back door. That's Jason in Pompey. You don't agree with that, though?
Well, there is a risk of it. I completely oppose the idea of mandatory digital ID. Is there a way in which this could be used to bring that about? Yes, there is. Is the fact that when I pick up my phone now to add an app or add something, it happens anyway. You've already got your details in there in order to use.
But is there any part of you that thinks this is part of a government who want to move it further away? I mean, you can... Lucy Connolly, I know, Alison Pearson, The Telegraph. People get arrested for hate crimes, for writing something that somebody disagrees with. There's a lot of people out there who would say, this is just the next step in control. That's what people believe, and you can't blame them for believing that.
Well, I think there is a valid concern about it. I think we should be concerned about it. I think the devil is in the detail, and it's what they actually bring forward, and what that looks like. We should definitely be protecting kids. We should be doing it in a sensible way, using the kit that's already on your phone. Whenever you buy an app, you do it by
Lindsay in Ipswich says, why don't we just make sure that under-16s have basic phones and not the ones that, you know, we all have now, that we used to have, that you could make a call and receive a call? Because that is absolutely spot on to me, because I gave my somebody gave my granddaughter, who I banned from calling me granddad in public, by the way, she's 8, somebody gave her my WhatsApp. What do you call it? When the picture comes up, what's that called? FaceTime. Bloody won't leave me alone now. I'm in the middle of something. She starts FaceTiming me because I'm a technophobe, but it is frightening.
Well,
and it's a different generation.
There's two other good reasons that we should give these kids Nokias. One is the battery on a Nokia seemed to last for days. Kids can use
Give them burner phones. Give them burner phones.
They don't have to plug them in every 20 minutes. And we can all go back on Snake. Do you remember Snake? You used to...
No.
Snake? You had the little... You navigate
Sounds
the
like
Snake
a northern
the
thing to me, Snake.
Back in the day of the Nokia.
Do you think Starmer played that?
Golden times.
I think he played Snake. Question for Lammy. This is good. What is a woman? So far, at 17 minutes to 7, Matt Vickers, who tomorrow will be asking at Prime Minister's Question Time a question to David Lammy. His favourite question is, what school did the Deputy Prime Minister go to? Why are you asking that, right honourable gentleman? So don't bloody well send my kids there. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:15, and welcome to Tuesday, the 16th of June. You're with Talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock. Brett, you're waking up to the news that, is free speech under attack? Yesterday, rushed through to cement his legacy, allegedly. The Prime Minister announced a ban on social media for under-16s. Turns out now, included in that new proposal, Apple and Google will be forced to check your age, either by selfie or personal details or literally bank details. People are saying it sort of happens anyway. Matt Vickers is saying that. Is with us. Other people are saying this is the next step towards control by the government. What do you make of that? Terrible story in the front of the Sun today. Appalling story. Murdered by twisted dad and failed by the system. Poor Preston Davey, another baby P. As Matt Vickers, you said to me, some sort of control needs to happen with social media to avoid these twisted human beings, well, monsters, from trawling and using these websites and doing what they do, right?
And some of these sickos are literally sat in darkened rooms trying this all day, every day, to work their way into kids' bedrooms, literally.
Yeah, I get that.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying. It's all about the detail. It's all about what you have to do. If it's a case of getting your app on your phone in the normal way, we already have our details in our phone, and that's all fine. If it's actually some creepy database where they want all your data and they want to bring by the back door this digital ID, then there is definitely a problem. This is a very big debate, because actually I remember, here's an interesting story for you, Jez. At one point, the online safety bill, it was about 6 months ago, I think, required you to give your ID in order to access porn, which is probably the right thing to prevent kids getting on some horrible stuff online. We brought it in and we talked about the safety of public officials. I got a death threat on my voicemail by somebody who wanted to access porn and was suffering from a delay in doing so because he had to have his ID uploaded onto his phone. Scary world.
What's a death threat?
Debate.
Wow.
Somebody rang up, left a voicemail, hoping I was going to die, and it's terrible.
We also learned this morning that Russia was behind the firebombing of a house and car linked to Keir Starmer. Yesterday, 2 men were found guilty of conspiring to carry out arson attacks on property and a car linked to the PM. The court heard that they were recruited online by a Russian speaker called El Mani. That's a Russian speaker from Spain, who promised the men payment. But then Russia started this conspiracy theory that I hadn't heard about at all until I came to work today, that it was revenge by 2 Ukrainian rent boys, 03444 499 1000. And we thought we'd have a bit of fun, because it's quite deep, the news today. Matt Vickers, very excited like a schoolboy. He's going to get to ask David Lammy, Deputy Prime Minister, a question tomorrow, and he's kind enough to say, you tell me what I should ask. 87222. Lammy used to be a barrister. Surely there must have been barista. But even that's not possible, because he should wake up and smell the coffee. Very good. Talk. You should organise, he said, I'm really impressed with what Matt said, there should be a minute silent nationwide for Henry. It would show up Starmer and his mob. It's a big one. Question from Lammy. This is from Louise. Why are child offenders consistently given either ludicrously short or no sentence at all, whilst others get years for hurty words? It's a great question, isn't it? That's a great question. Paul Wells from Hull. This social media ban is a farce. How is it enforced? What are the consequences of breaking the ban? Who is policing it? All of that. That's why people are saying, front page of the Telegraph today, it's being rushed through to cement his legacy. He hasn't got a legacy. He's going to be thrown out of office as the most incompetent Prime Minister ever. Liam's in Yorkshire. Morning, Matt and Jez. If you do this, you will go down in political history. He wants you to stand up and go, Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Prime Minister, if you were a biscuit, would you be called a Lammy Dodger? What do you think? So brilliant.
I think there's a valid point there. The barista versus barista. I mean, if his spelling is as good as his general knowledge, that could be an accident with his CVs. We know what these front benches on the Labour side are like with the
There
CVs.
you go. There's your line.
Case,
Bill, so if one kid gets around social media ban, how can they then stop sending photos to their friends?
Come again.
He's basically saying with a VPN, kids will find a way of getting through this ban and then send pictures to their friends or details. So the whole thing's non-enforceable and can't work.
There are kids out there getting absolutely off their face on drink. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't stop them drinking in the play park. You know, it's kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's true. Matt, ask Calamity Lammy, how long does he think Starmer's got left and has he still got confidence in him, says Margaret in Birmingham. That's a good one. Keith in Oswestry, Matt Vickers shouldn't wait for the Speaker to okay a minute's silence for Henry. It would be impactful if all the Tories just stood up at PMQs for a minute to embarrass the government. It's really interesting. It's really powerful, that, by the way, really powerful. Mike, ask Lammy, what is he doing on migrant crime as the Justice Secretary, seeing as how the Prime Minister has now been proven to be a victim of migrant crime? Matt Vickers, he's giving it some thought, this. Morning, fellas. Great show. Ask Lammy, what is it like working for the most useless, pointless, self-serving idiot of an individual that ever held the title of Prime Minister in the United Kingdom? You're not allowed to say that, are you? This is the one that said, Mr. Speaker, could I ask the Deputy Prime Minister, when is he next appearing on Mastermind? That's a good one. I love that. It's good. Listen, let's talk. Do you remember Wes Streeting a few weeks ago? Flounced out of Downing Street. I don't want to be... I've spoken to my mate who runs the Labour Party in Scotland. You haven't come. Oh, I'm basically now on the back bench. Anyway, he seems to be doing lots of talking and planning lots of things. Overnight, he's urged Brits all over the Sun today. Page 2, actually. No. England, of course, tomorrow night. First game in the World Cup against Croatia. Wes, ignore the killjoys and fly the flag with pride. So suddenly, a man who was in a government that don't allow you to fly the flag and you can be arrested because apparently it's divisive and it's been hijacked by the right, is now in the Sun newspaper saying we should fly our flag with pride. Methinks the lack of cabinet collective responsibility has shown his true colours. Why don't people speak out for common sense when they're in government, Matt Vickers?
Well, methinks it may or may not be his true colours. It may be the fact that he's still caught in the idea that he could become the Prime Minister of the UK.
He can't become
This is the guy who, a couple of weeks ago, said we should be rejoining the EU, want to open all that debate back up, didn't he? It's like he's all over the place. And I think he just needs a bit of attention at the minute, and that's kind of where we're going.
Do you know him?
I don't know him particularly well. His partner stood against me in the general election.
Of course he did, yes.
That was quite interesting. So he was up in my part of the world a fair bit, and then his own seat didn't.
Does he genuinely believe that he can be the next Prime Minister? Because he's going to lose his seat.
I think
if you look at the way the voting's supposed to
go. When you were talking to some of those Labour backbenchers, some of them thought it was a thing. They thought he was sensible. I mean, some people would say sensible in contrast to some of the other options. Who knows? Lammy might be the next Prime Minister.
Can Matt ask Lammy on that one why he isn't even being considered by the Parliamentary Labour Party to run for Prime Minister, seeing as how he's the current deputy? That's an absolutely brilliant question. Well done, Diane from Bedfordshire.
It's actually a really interesting point, because you think about this. Is there any point previously where the deputy wouldn't have been considered even in the running?
Yeah,
to take over?
yeah, I can think.
Prescott.
Yeah, Hattersley.
It's kind of specific.
Prescott, Hattersley, anybody. Who was the deputy leader? Who was it with Michael Foot?
Who was it?
I don't know.
Well, he wasn't the Prime Minister, to be fair.
No, true. But
Prescott
it's true.
was actually the Deputy Prime Minister.
But I've a great belief that a good number 2, like football, never aspires to the top job and helps. But I just don't understand anything about Lammy. He has to be the I literally, I'm not being disrespectful, he has to come across as the most incompetent person. And that says something. Morning, Ed. How are you, son?
Jezza, Ed from Birmingham, on my way to work. On the subject of digital ID, so we talk about 16-year-olds and having to prove that you're old enough to use them. This isn't about banning children under 16. It's about us as adults having to prove that we're old enough to use it. So for me, it's digital ID. What a bad door. Keep up the good work, mate.
It's a really contentious issue, because I actually genuinely totally agree with you that anything that protects children, when you look at that appalling story, I keep holding it up because the Sun will bring you the truth here. Good job, Richard Moriarty, great job. But it's such a terrible story. Preston Davey, betrayed, bullied and sexually abused by 2 gay men who were given control of this boy 4 months. And it's just so vile. And so when I look at that, and I completely get it, and then I have lots of people phoning up and saying, yeah, we should do whatever, and then others go, no, this is the Labour Party's way of trying to control us. But you can understand that. You can understand that. There was the story of the guy that worked at our sister station Times. It was in a school WhatsApp group, don't know if you know this, and he dared to criticise the teacher's methods to one of his mates. 6 police arrived at his door. But, I mean, you smile, that's bloody ludicrous, you know?
Well, it's all about moderation. It's about the detail, actually. Digital, we have Apple ID or whatever other device you might use, which already has your credit card. If that is the standard, that is fine. However, if it is some big creepy database, with those people, those vile individuals that try to do this stuff online, they have a lot more time than us. They're probably a lot more sassy with the tech than us. They find a way.
Why should the rest of us suffer because of monsters?
Because we need to protect our kids.
OK. Now, you're not brave enough to ask this question tomorrow. This is a real challenge. But David Cheltenham says, what you should ask is, why is video evidence, Mr Deputy Prime Minister, good enough to lock up rioters for 2 years within 12 minutes of them quite rightly doing bad things, but it wasn't used to convict the Manchester airport attack on those police officers?
Mm-hmm.
He's acknowledged...
The justice system gets me going wound up and
Does it?
Fired up. Yeah.
Gets you going.
Well, you look at this, and we all know, we're seeing this story this morning, and we all know we're going to be incensed by whatever the verdict is, because the sentencing in our justice system will not be adequate to deal with monsters like that. And we know that before we even get there. We know it's going to...
Am I allowed to say this, or is this going to get me into trouble about what... Does anybody out there... Christian, I'm being serious. Am I allowed to have the debate about what I should think should happen to those two men, or are we not allowed to say that on this station? My personal view is that... And this is my personal view, I'd love to know what you think, that there are monsters and heinous individuals who do not deserve, when they carry out crimes like that, to remain on this earth. I don't understand how those two should not be dealt with. They should be hung. Sorry, that's my opinion. It's not Talk's opinion. Some people go, hey, you can't do that because you're lowering yourself to the level, and can you prove... Just think of a 4-month-old baby being sexually abused, mutilated, burnt, broken bones, if you want me to give it to you absolutely straight. And we can sit here and go on about, oh, it's money. No, it's not that. It's about morality, isn't it? It's about what's right and what's wrong. Maybe that's too strong, but that's how I feel as a dad.
I think when you read that story and you read what happened to that child, you cannot help but be absolutely furious. But actually, the justice system, even at the basic level, is going the wrong way. We're hearing about this early release scheme.
Yeah.
The government are allowing people to be let out of prison even earlier, some of them serving just as little as a third of their sentence.
Do you know, I've just found out...
What's the point of having a court that is meant to dish out a sentence if these guys get out halfway through the sentence?
Do you know, I've just found out. Do you know one of those baby murderers was a teacher? Joanna in Salisbury says, Fox in the hen house, that's outrageous. I mean, that is beyond a failure of social services. And yes, they should be prosecuted, but I just ask you seriously, when you look at that, tragedy of adopted Preston. Adopted, missed, a teacher, and you're going to pay, what, for 50? If they'll get out on good behaviour, I'm with you. Matty, brilliant. What question are you asking tomorrow? What school did your kids go to?
I quite like that. That's a winner thus far.
We're going to be watching, so we'll be very excited. We love having you on. You're great. You come on, you answer the questions. Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party. Don't bite your fingernails tomorrow in the Commons. Everybody from Talk will be watching, all right? Don't wear the green tie.
I'll put my best tie on. I won't bite my nails.
We're going to play it out. We're going to play the question out, so I'm watching. We're watching. We see you, Matt Vickers. We see you. News at 7 is next. Carl Turner, Independent Labour. Well, he was Labour, thrown out. He's next on Talk Breakfast.
My two younger daughters live near Bournemouth. Bournemouth has been transformed from a sort of idyllic English seaside town to a place where there are attacks and rapes. They've had to have set up their own security force.
Bournemouth is a war zone now.
It's terrible. There's 3 migrant hotels. There's all sorts. There's rapes. It is just wicked. And I have to speak to my young daughters about strange men there. That isn't good at all. The public are right to feel angry.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And then give some more of it away.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back or welcome along. You would Talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of alarm clock Brits, wherever you're waking up in the UK. Maybe you're already on the way back from the night shift. We see ya. You're working, you're paying your taxes, and all those people who are sitting at home are taking advantage. I know how you feel. We're here every morning. Listen, if you want to be on, we're delighted to take your call. Your views on the day's news, so important to us. 0344 499 1000's the number. Tommy, lovely. We'll take your call. You can do a voice note to Christian. You can send a text on 87222. It's one of those days of news that, you know, I mean, it's led by this appalling story. Showcased as ever brilliantly on the front page of The Sun. Tragedy of adopted Preston Davey betrayed, murdered by his twisted dad, missed by social workers 8 times. I'm not even going to go into detail, but it's so horrific. It is so horrific. And I said just before the news, some people, my view is that scum like that shouldn't be allowed to live on this earth. Many people agree, many don't. Joanna from Salisbury, I love this. She says, Jez, the reason why the baby killers should not be executed is they should have a lifetime of torture in prison. In my mind, death's the easy way out. Alison in County Antrim says, Jez, I'm a mum, I agree with you. So you didn't say mum, that was somebody else. I totally agree with you about that poor baby on the front page of the Sun newspaper. All the best. Good show this morning. The reason I want to talk about that is because the big news yesterday, of course, was this social media ban on under-16s, again in every newspaper this morning, front page of The Sun. Age checks on phone to access social media. So the government yesterday, and he got accused of trying to rush it through to cement his legacy. Starmer said under-16s, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, no good. I want to protect the kids. And as Matt Vickers, who was on the show just now, said, that's a good thing, because sort of controls and checks allow scum like this to go online and prey on kids. But the question is this, we find out overnight, you know, we are the home of free speech, right? Should free speech be anonymous? Apple and Google have admitted that because of these new controls, they're going to have to identify your age with your face or personal details or bank details. And you know, so are you sort of happy that you have to prove who you are before you make a post or a tweet? You can look at that in both ways and say, yes, because some of the dreadful things that's written, you should trace people. I don't know. Or does it make us more accountable online? You know, this whole, like, I'm going to rush it through to cement my legacy. Here's a question for you as well. What is Starmer's legacy? Not great at all. But social media has got you going this morning, as has that horrendous story. James says, I completely agree with Vickers in regards to banning under-16s of pre-16 from social media. Sacrifices have to be made when fighting evil, the same as why we have tighter security at airports after terrorist attacks. Sean, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby here. Now, I've read about the 2 gay men who abused that young lad and killed him this morning when I got up, and it's absolutely quite disturbing. But once again, it's a case of, oh, the authorities could have done something, but we didn't want to do anything because we'll be accused of some sort of homophobia or some sort of ism. When did we become this type of society where we allow the abuse of kids and we don't say anything to avoid offending the people who are actually doing the abusing? You know, something's got to give, Jeremy, big time, because it's messed up. Great show, mate.
I make no apology for calling it out. Those 2 scumbags, in my personal opinion, not Talks, do not have a right to an existence on this earth after what they've done to that kid. I can say that as a father of 6. I can say that as a 60-year-old man. That is my opinion. Other people will disagree. But whether it's social services or it's social media, of course you've got to call it out. I don't care whether they're gay, I don't care where they come from, I don't care about their sexuality. Anybody who is allowed through the system to end up doing what those 2 did to that boy, God, listen, as a father, you do time. I can't have it. So much response this morning. Thank you very much indeed. 0344 499 1000. Jez, there are already safeguards on the phones that parents can use to restrict children's use on the internet. So Matt Vickers thinks that the nanny state should parent us. Interesting. Carl says using kids as a weapon against adults. Digital ID and Vickers going along with it and losing free speech. My details are not on my phone. How do you say that? How do you say that name? Arius? Iris? I don't know how you say that. Child abuse, bullying, eating disorders, murders, suicides, child neglect, racism and all of the horrors that have been part of human behaviour for centuries. Banning social media will not fix the problems our young people face. As usual, this government shows itself to have absolutely no understanding of human beings. Let's say a very good morning to a man who stood up to the Labour government and had the whip taken away. Now as an independent MP for Hull East. You love him on this station. Carl Turner, good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. Good to be with you.
Let's start with this disgusting story on the front page of The Sun. I know you've got kids. I can't... it's so appalling. It's so disgusting. And, of course, in every society there are heinous individuals. Where do you stand, seriously, about what should happen? Why are we... I'm not trying to start a debate. People have their own opinions, but we're going to pay 80 grand a year for, what, 30 years? And be out on good behaviour. How is Scum allowed that to even continue to be around? Sorry, my thoughts.
Well, the thing is, I can't verbalise what I really think without being bleeped out by Tommy. Because the reality is this is just absolutely stomach-churningly disgusting. And the truth is this baby, this boy, has been let down by the authorities. That's the reality. We'll end up with a public inquiry. We'll spend tens of millions of pounds to find out what went wrong. Well, we know what went wrong. The reality is social workers made a terrific, tragic mistake, and this kid is now dead as a result. This child who had no future, I think fostered at 5 days old, adopted to these animals, and the reality is dead now and gone forever. We ought to be utterly ashamed of what we've allowed to happen. I'd go in there and I'd sack a lot of them. I'd start from scratch. I'd get into that department, never mind the local authority social services. I'd start with the chief executive, get him or her out of the place and start from scratch, because this is an offence which we should never have to witness in this country.
Completely agree.
That's how deeply I feel about this. I'm utterly disgusted. We'll get on our back feet in the House of Commons later today and tomorrow and into next week, and we'll talk about how terrible it all is, and then we'll end up with a public inquiry which costs the taxpayer, people who get up in the morning and go to graft, fortunes to find out what we already know. Get rid of them all.
Could not agree more, mate. Passionate and absolutely straight, as you always are. I want to talk to you about an announcement by, well, the leader of the Labour Party that you once were in yesterday. Front page of the Telegraph. Starmer's social media ban a rush job. Front of the Times today. Great piece. Age checks on phones to access social media. So yesterday Starmer stands up. It was all a bit rushed, but he basically says under 16s, we're going to ban certain social medias, Instagram, TikTok, X, whatever. Many people saying good. You know, there are scumbags like those two we've talked about, trawling websites, attacking kids, grooming kids, absolutely the right thing to do. Others are saying, and I said this, so what about parents? Others are going, yeah, but parents can't keep their eye. And then we're talking about checks and VPNs and kids are clever enough to get through it. And I said something yesterday, love your take on this. There is an argument that says that at 15 years of age and 364 days, we're saying to a kid, you can't watch that, and 12 hours later he can vote for the next bleeding government, which is a complete joke. But I have to say it's gone further overnight, because it turns out that Apple and Google, amongst others, will be forced to age check for everybody else. So if you want to go and make a comment on X, or you want to view something online, if this comes in, you'll have to prove who you are with bank details or a selfie or personal ID. And there are many, Carl, who listen to this and watch this who go, no. This is the Labour Party attacking free speech. This is about the state getting more and more control. What are your views on the whole thing, bud?
Well, look, when this first kicked off as a discussion and a debate, it was led by Catherine McKinnell, who had recently been reshuffled out of government. She's an MP who I've got a good deal of respect for. And I was opposed to the idea. I told her straight, I thought it was a bad idea. Of course, we want our kids to be staying off the internet wherever possible, doom scrolling, if you will, through various apps. But the reality is, I think this is rushed. I think it is rushed. I'm a fan of regulation, by the way. That is something I'm not opposed to. But you've got to listen to the victims of this stuff, right? And Ian Russell, who has led the campaign on this because his daughter was tragically died as a result of the use of the internet.
Molly Russell, yeah.
This won't work. This is what he says. It won't work. So it's got to be evidence-based. And I think this is right. Look, it's easy for me to have a pop at Keir Starmer, isn't it? He's going to be gone in a few weeks. That's the truth. If Burnham wins, Starmer's gone. But in order to have something of a legacy, he's going to rush something through. Well, it's not happening. He's got no authority in Parliament. This needs to be done properly. It has to be evidence-based. If it's going to work, do it.
And I think it rather encapsulates. I think it rather encapsulates on a bigger political thing. I mean, I just want to pick up that thing. People will have different opinions about these things. That's what a debate and a democracy is about. Legacy, right? This is not flippant. I would tell him to his face, it doesn't matter what you rush through. It doesn't matter what you think you can put in place, because to me that symbolises entirely everything about his 2-year premiership. That there was nothing he was convicted to believing he would come in and do because he believed in it, that he flip-flopped on a daily basis, that he brought stuff in because a focus group or some young spad who's 11 told him that that would be a good idea. And this is another example. And yet again, the authenticity of Keir Starmer, there is none. If you ask the British people, and I think one of the strengths of this nation is you can have a debate with somebody and you could spend your life disagreeing and arguing at the top of your voice to the complete opposite, and then you go and have a drink, because that's what it's all about. But there's no fire in his belly. So I don't, personally, if I was asked exactly, I don't think he believes that this is the right thing to do, because this was initiated by the Tories and he dropped it and he brought it back, any more than I suddenly bought yesterday that the Army or the Navy or the Marines boarded a vessel. Because 2 months ago, the Attorney General said that was against foreigners' human rights that we could... So, to me, I don't think, I'm afraid, he's going to get anything other than the most appalling legacy. What is his legacy then, Carl?
Well, look, Keir Starmer always prided himself to a degree on the fact that there's no such thing as Starmerism. But the problem with that, Jeremy, is there's no such thing as Starmerism because I don't think he ever believed in anything.
Yeah.
I don't know what his politics are, honestly. Listen, and I was asked by a pal of mine yesterday, how do you feel now? And the reason my pal was asking me is because for the last 4 or 5 years, he's been saying to me he can't stand Starmer. And I've been defending and protecting him for the last 5 years. He said to me, how do you feel now? I said, well, to be honest, it's a weird thing because I have defended him and I have pretended something better's coming. But the truth is, there's never anything coming from Keir because he never believed in anything in the first place. And that's the problem he has with the country. When I knock on doors in East Hull, and I do it a lot, Jeremy, they tell me they can't stomach him. And there must be a reason for that because he's not a bad man. He's not a bad person.
It's exactly this whole thing about legacy, though. When on the doors they say they can't stomach him, and this isn't some sort of campaign by me. I'm just telling it how it is. The man is vacuous. The man... I've just said it, and I say it every day. There's no part of Jeremy Corbyn's politics that I could ever adhere to. Genuinely, hand and heart. But even my old dad, and that was the last election he saw, which was Theresa May and Corbyn, he said to me, you know what, old boy, he said, I don't agree with a bloody word, but at least he stood up and laid it out and and he nearly did it, didn't he? And he said that would terrify me, but that's relevant, Carl. If you don't believe in anything, be it social media, it's very easy to stand up and say, well, I mean, be warned, the British Army is on the march. We're going to defend ourselves. But you've just said last week there's no money for defence. I'm going to control social media. Well, do something about social services. 1 minute you're going to rejoin the EU. The whole thing is such a, in my mind, a mishmash of sound bites naively spoken at a given moment in the belief that it makes a difference. And you should never, you know this from Hull, should never underestimate the British people. They sussed Keir Starmer out really bloody quickly, in my mind.
It's absolutely, what you say is absolutely spot on. Honestly, and I'm not happy about that.
No.
I'm not happy about it because I honestly and genuinely believed he was the future. I did. I was foolish about that. I admit it. I feel a bit embarrassed. But the fact is, he just doesn't believe in anything.
When did you know? When did you know? Having backed him, you said to your mate yesterday, 5 years, when did you know he was out of his depth / just not up to it?
Well, it became apparent fairly quickly when we got into government. That's when the penny dropped, because there was no substance. There was no Starmerism. There was no plan. There was no vision. You know, I prosecuted and defended in criminal proceedings as a lawyer. So did Starmer. I can pick up a brief, Jeremy, and walk into a Crown Court next week with a wig on my bonds and prosecute what's in front of me on the written word. I can repeat what's been said. But I don't believe in what I'm doing. If I'm defending some geezer who's done something terrible, allegedly, I can defend to the hill by reading the written word. But I don't believe in what he's done needs defending. Keir Starmer's treated the job as Premier, the Prime Minister of this country, as if it's a brief he's representing on behalf of whoever is instructed to represent. And that's the problem he's had. He's gone into every room with a piece of paper saying it says here.
Yeah.
And you can't govern like that.
There's no conviction in that, is there? That's like adding up the dots. You're so right. It's like I said at the beginning, tell me what you stand for, and even if I disagree, we'll debate it and I'll acknowledge that's your position. But all that you get, and I brought up that story about yesterday with that vessel being, you know, raided by British Marines, and this was 24 hours after he said there's no money for defence. 3 days after his two defence high command, John Healey and Al Carnes, went, right? Which tells you something. But he's that naive, and this is what worries me, that he thinks that everybody go, oh, don't worry, Keir's got it. He's had a boat. So, yeah, ridiculous. And one of my biggest criticisms of Keir Starmer and the Labour Party as it stands is, whatever your politics, I don't think they give the impression that they have either listened or give a damn what the British people think. And that is exactly what happened to the Tory party. And when that happens, when through either incompetence or ego or narcissism you stop listening to people, you end up getting burnt, mate. That's the way it is. That's the way it is.
Absolutely spot on. It's absolutely right. I mean, I can't... Look, I'd like to be able to defend the position of the Labour Party, right? But what you say is absolutely right. You've got to have a vision, whether it's a Tory Prime Minister, David Cameron, he believed in stuff. I didn't like what he said, Jeremy, from the backbenches of the Labour Party, in the Commons. I didn't like what Cameron said, but let me tell you now, he believed.
Yeah.
Theresa May, again, she believed in something. Boris Johnson was a breath of fresh air for my punters in East Hull because he had a bit of charisma and they believed in what he was after doing. But the problem with Boris again was he didn't really believe. He wrote two versions of leaving the EU, one to remain and one to leave. You know, that was soon rumbled by the electorate. And the truth is, when politicians are not conviction politicians,
absolutely.
Nobody disliked Dennis Skinner, Jeremy. Nobody disliked Dennis Skinner. People might have disliked what he was saying and disagreed
the beast
with
of
him.
Bolsover.
But they all respected the fact that he meant what he was saying.
Completely agree.
Corbyn, similarly, I couldn't stand Jeremy Corbyn as the leader of the Labour Party. I thought he was a disaster for us. I never thought we'd win an election under Jeremy, and I told him to his face. We're still pals now, by the way. We get on. I had a cup of tea with him a couple of weeks ago. But he knew where I stood.
Yeah.
But the electorate trusted that he believed in what he was saying, because he did. Problem with Jeremy Corbyn, his politics hadn't changed since he was 18 years of age.
Yeah.
That was his problem. He'd never grown up, really. But with Keir Starmer, it just doesn't believe in anything, in my view, and it's a tragedy.
It's an interesting time. I take absolutely your views on the situation with social media and Starmer. Just very quickly, pal, overnight, we hear, and it's in every paper, that Russia was behind the firebombing of Starmer's house and vehicle. 2 men were yesterday found guilty of conspiring to carry out arson attacks on his property and car linked to the PM. The court heard they were recruited on land by a Russian-speaking guy called El Money, which doesn't sound Russian to me, but there you go, who promised him payment. And then apparently the Russia started, I hadn't heard about this till this morning, the conspiracy theory that it was revenge by 2 Ukrainian rent boys. Was that a thing? Did that happen?
Well, there's all sorts of things likely to be coming out of Russia. I don't deny that what's been said is true to a degree. But can you imagine? I go back to politicians with conviction. Listen, I grew up not being able to stand Thatcher. That was my upbringing. That was my trade union family upbringing. But can you imagine what Thatcher would have done about this? What are we going to do about it? A British Prime Minister, whatever his politics, whatever political party he stands for, what are we going to do about a British Premier being attacked by another state? That's the truth of where we are. Thatcher wouldn't put up with that.
No.
Would be reacting to it in the way that the country would expect. We don't always agree with the politics of our Prime Ministers, but my word, we defend them to the hill when we're attacked by a foreign state, because that's the British way. So what are we going to do? Thatcher won't put up with this.
Could not agree more. Mate, I got to move, but I love having you on. You know we do. We'll have you on later in the week at the old by-election. Top man, thank you as ever. Carl Turner, independent MP for Hull. He's thrown out the Labour Party. Well, the whip withdrawn for daring to stand up to Starmer and say, I don't agree with you on several things. He speaks his mind. What is Starmer's legacy? Just do me a favour, just for half an hour, 87222, just entertain me. What would you say is Keir Starmer's legacy? If he's trying to rush things through in the naive belief that anybody's going to go, ha, he did that, I don't think that's true. Let's do it. What is his legacy? 87222. Wayne, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. It's Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham, mate. Starmer's legacy will be that he's the most despised leader this country's ever had, and also the most inept. That's it in a nutshell, mate. He ain't nothing. Take it easy, Jezza. Top show, buddy.
Do you have any idea what it is like to start becoming desensitized to yet another stabbing, an attempted beheading, a gang rape, a sex attack? Do you have any idea? Or is it that you live in your ivory towers with your secure cavalcade of vehicles, so it doesn't matter, doesn't affect you, doesn't affect your family? We pay for your protection. Why aren't you protecting us?
UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:27. It's Tuesday morning. You would talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock. Brick, good morning to our mate Robin. Newcastle was down yesterday, loved it. Back home now. No doubt we'll hear from him. So many people texting this show this morning. Loads that you're waking up to. That horrific murder of baby Preston and the impact that that has had. The social media ban. What does it mean for free speech? And as somebody just said, our Prime Minister attacked by a foreign state. And the nation will do nothing about it. And also, Starmer's legacy, what is it? Vinny says, release of the sausages and smash the boats, the gangs. That's his legacy. Paul from Kent, good morning. I think social services should be removed from councils and made a properly accountable government department with a single computer system. That way scumbags can't hide by moving from place to place so that new councils do not have to play catch-up. Really interesting point. Anne, she's called Annie B. in Drum... How do you say that? Drumnadoche? I don't know where that is. This ID checking won't work. It literally takes 2 minutes to put a VPN on your device. Kids will get round this. Morning, Jez. Social media should not be banned. It will only become the forbidden fruit. Instead, tech companies should be required to ensure algorithms do not push harmful content. This Labour government must not be allowed to monitor and control more parts of our lives. They're worse than dictators. Rosa in Yorkshire. Lovely to hear from you. Sorry, loads of you. Karen's in Norfolk. Jez, what's all this about Starmer's legacy building? He's already created his legacy. No matter what he tries to push through, his legacy will always be the man who single-handedly managed to wreck the British way of life and completely ruin the country he was meant to defend. 7:28. Let's go to the political editor of the Sun newspaper, a legendary journalist. Very good morning, Jack Elsom. How are you, son?
Good morning, Jeremy. Yeah, very well, thank you.
Before I talk about Starmer, before I talk about social media, before I talk about your excellent piece about West Streeting, who I think is missing the limelight, as ever, the Sun doing a brilliant job. I cannot, as a father, I can't talk about this because I know what I want to do to these two human beings. I don't think... then it starts the debate. Great work by Richard Moriarty, but just an appalling story about this kid. Authorities missed up to 8 chances to save this abused baby's life. It just puts, does it not, Jack Elsom, so much into context?
Yeah, you're totally right. And, you know, there were, you know, dozens of stories that the Sun could have put on the front page yesterday. But like you said, you know, this is just the most important story by far. Which I've seen in actually quite a long time now, just because of how sick and depraved the nature of it was, but also the role in terms of the social services. And every time one of these things happen, and you know, appallingly, it seems to happen far too often. We always talk about the lessons learned and what can we learn from it, but actually, it doesn't seem that much changes. And you know, the problem with the British state often is that you need one of these tragedies to almost give them a rocket to actually act, and they always come out and say they're going to act and they're going to change, but actually not much really does. It's just incremental tinkering.
Well, that's what Carl Turner said. He said that the frustrating thing for him, he said, is that they'll sit there and hand-wring for a week in the House of Commons. There'll be a public inquiry, which will result in cost of millions to the taxpayer, and as you said, they'll say we can't do anything. Yeah, you can take to task all those social workers. And I want to make a point I made at 6 o'clock, and you might agree or disagree. There are thousands of social workers the length and breadth of this country that do amazing work, and quite rightly, we only hear horror stories like this. But I do want to make that point. But the people that did this should be prosecuted. It's an absolute disgrace. It makes me sick to the stomach, Jack. I can't talk about it, mate. It's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, I know. It's horrible. You know, to happen in a country like Britain as well in 2026. It just it boggles the mind. You can't even think about it. It's disgusting. Yeah.
I'd love your views on the two main news stories of the day. Obviously, yesterday, Starmer apparently trying to rush his legacy through, but his legacy is, I'm afraid, over. Under-16s ban, Sun wrote about that. But it goes further today. Apple and Google are going to have to check that they're admitting your age. So if you want to do something and you're over 18, you're going to have to prove it with bank details or a Face ID or a selfie. A lot of people saying to avoid monsters like this that are on the front of the Sun being able to trawl websites. That's a good thing. Others are going, no. This is the beginning of more state control. We shouldn't have to be accountable online. We should be able to put a post or a tweet without that. What's your take on this, pal? What is the right balance in your mind?
Well, listen, I think that in terms of politics, it's smart politics from Keir Starmer. And listen, I'm old enough to remember only a few months ago when Keir Starmer was fundamentally opposed to any kind of social media ban. He's clearly had a massive change of heart because he's seen the polling behind it. And the polling is universally popular. You know, parents support this. They supported it in the consultation the government run. There's polling yesterday said about 75% support among parents, clearly fearing their kids getting addicted on these platforms. It's robbing them of their childhood. Their mental health is getting damaged as a result. But I think there's an onus from the Prime Minister and on the government. If you're going to come out and announce something, come out with a full package and come out with the ideas and the details about how it's going to actually work, because otherwise people will start fearing the worst. They'll start fearing that it's a backdoor slippery slope to all forms of digital ID. It's going to require more draconian encroachments on our lives. And he didn't do that. And, you know, we even had a briefing with officials yesterday who couldn't even tell us how this is going to be enforced. And so, yeah, it's fine for Keir Starmer to come out and say, oh, well, you know, kids get hold of beer the whole time. So, you know, we don't make it legal for kids to have alcohol. So why are we going to suddenly just try and give up on this? Which is fine, but at least come up with some sort of details and blueprint for how this is going to work before you just rush it out.
I think that's the point, though, Jack, isn't it? Because we've been talking this morning about authenticity and legacy, right? For me, the worst judgment that this Prime Minister and this government does is they seem to think the British people are thick, and I actually believe the British people have woken up now more than ever before. I remember a time of the expense scandal. I didn't think people would invest in politics, but I think people feel, you know, that word I use every day, fairness, is so lacking in availability to the rest of us normal taxpaying people that we do keep an eye on it. And he's so out of touch if he thinks he can just bring something in without any detail just because a focus group says it's important. Because people know he doesn't believe in anything. That's the point.
Well, this is the issue, Jeremy, and we've seen this with other policies that he's announced, policies that, on the face of it, appear to poll well in isolation. Starmer then announces it, and he almost has the reverse Midas touch, and you then see the policy just totally plummet when he sort of like hitches his name to it. And he's got that such unpopularity now in terms of where a lot of the British people are at that he can't really do right at the moment. I do, you know, I've said it on the show before and got attacked by your viewers, but I do feel a bit sorry for him in that regard, where clearly sometimes he's trying to do the right thing and trying to go where the public is.
Yeah, but the reason I take you to task on that, and people say to me he's a nice man, I don't know the man you would. But if you feel sorry for somebody because he's trying to do the right thing, my answer to that would be, no, he's not trying to do the right thing for any other reason that somebody's told him it might be a good idea and it might do him a favour. If he believed in the right thing, Jack Elsom, he'd bloody well have done that and laid that out 2 years ago, and we believe that he actually believed in it.
Well, that is true, and it goes back to the conversation we're having about Carl Turner, about conviction.
Yeah.
And actually, people respect politicians more if they have a driving force, if they, you know, stand by the courage of their convictions, if they actually sort of, you know, put their head above the parapet and say something which might be unpopular, but actually it's clearly what they believe in. Yes, of course, politicians are respected that do that, because at least it shows a bit of bravery in terms of facing up to the electorate. Where I think that actually this policy could fall down, and which seems to me totally inconsistent, is the curves which are being proposed in 16 and 17-year-olds. Because Keir Starmer is now proposing not just the under 16 social media ban, but he's proposing curves on infinite scrolling, the sort of doom scrolling for 16 and 17-year-olds, but also curfews and when they can use social media, so like an 8:30 curfew. Now, are we seriously saying that millions of 16 and 17-year-olds at the next election are going to be given the vote and are going to be deciding who the next Prime Minister is, but aren't responsible enough, therefore, to decide what time they need to go to bed? I mean, that just seems like a total
said it yesterday. At 15 years and 364 days, I'm going to say to my boy, you can't watch that. And 12 hours later, you can decide who the next Prime Minister is. That's ludicrous. Great piece by you. I've got to do this today. England, of course. World Cup fever. Talk Sport, our sister station. Everything you need. Kicking off tomorrow night against Croatia. Seriously, the Talk Sport coverage, world class. Jack Elsom, though, I love this. I didn't know you were such a big football fan.
Oh, yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Who do you support football-wise then?
I'm a Liverpool fan. My dad's from the Wirral up there,
Seriously,
so...
Wirral, the posh part where people get out the bath to have a wee.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to work there. It's true. Can I just say, so Wes Streeting, honestly, collective cabinet responsibility out the window. Your piece in The Sun today, brilliant. Wes, ignore the killjoys and fly the flag with pride. Now, forgive me for being somewhat cynical. Is Wes missing the limelight? Because I thought he was part of a government who said that the British flag and the St George's flag were divisive figures of the far right. But now, apparently having resigned and maybe seemingly something in his head still says I can be Prime Minister, he thinks we should be proud. Again, you're not going to believe it, are you?
Well, he's certainly feeling liberated, I'll tell you that. In the conversation he had with me, he certainly felt a bit freer than when he was shackled to the Starmer government. But listen, I mean, Wes Streeting, I think, again, pretty smart politics, but he generally seemed to believe it. He was saying that in his part of London, it's a very sort of, it's an area where there's not loads of flags, but he's been doing this tour around the country, and lo and behold, in real England, they love the flag and they adopt it, and they don't see it as a division, as a tool of division and a symbol of sort of race baiting. Actually, they see it as a symbol of unity, and they love it. And so he's been launching this campaign, which he told me about how actually people shouldn't feel afraid to fly the England flag. And he said that too often lefties have been far too squeamish about it, and he told them to stop clutching their pearls and get over it. The same with councils, green councils who are trying to tear the flag down and telling residents not to put them up during the World Cup, no less. He's come out today getting behind this campaign. And, I think at The Sun as well, we'd encourage everyone to put up a flag, be it in your home, be it in public, because I do think it looks fantastic and it's this great show of patriotic pride, which we are losing in this country.
I completely agree, and The Sun doing a great job with that. Finally, only got a minute. We learnt yesterday two Ukrainian men were found guilty of conspiring to carry out arson in a car and property linked to the Prime Minister. I'm going to do this with a straight face. The court heard they were recruited online by a Russian-speaking man called El Money. So that's a Russian speaker with a Spanish name, but that way. And then apparently Russia started a conspiracy theory. I knew nothing about this until today, that it was indeed to revenge for Ukrainian rent boys. I've got a serious question to you. So our Prime Minister is attacked by a rogue nation, by a foreign state, and we're going to do nothing about it, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think you would like to see a bit of anger on behalf of the Prime Minister with this one.
Yeah.
In terms of actual action, I mean, short of invading Russia, I'm not sure what we can really do. I mean, we're sort of already,
Well, at least raise it with them instead of being, him, he won't say anything. Raise it with them.
Yeah, I guess we could raise it with him. I guess he could make a statement in the House of Commons. He's obviously condemned Russia at every which turn. We're funding the Ukrainians in their war against them. I listened to Carl Turner say, what would Thatcher do in this scenario? Which I guess you could make a point out, but we're not suddenly going to send a task force to Moscow, are we?
No, but she'd have used strong words and she'd have done something.
I think that maybe that it probably warrants that. People will be frightened if even the leader of their country's home can be attacked by probably the most aggressive state in the world right now. And so, yeah, you're right. I think it probably merits some sort of language. I think the Prime Minister probably feels, because it's a deeply personal thing to him, he doesn't really want to flaunt that in public. I think it's been quite traumatic for some of his family, and so he might want to relive that. But you're right. Many people here will be pretty concerned that they got so close. In fact, they didn't get close. They did, firebomb the home of his family, and so it's a troubling case.
What was this conspiracy theory? Why would the Russian start a conspiracy theory that it was revenge by two Ukrainian rent boys? Then where did that come from?
Well, I think we've seen Russian disinformation campaigns in the past. They just try and put anything into the ether and see what sticks. And clearly, even if you logged on to Twitter in the past year or so, you'd have seen this going around. Even on my timeline, you see it. People who you don't necessarily follow, but it gets reshared, and that's how lies are spread around. And so clearly they thought it was they're very sophisticated, Russia, when it comes to those misinformation campaigns and disseminating it in public. And so clearly this was just another example of that.
Well, I think our government and our Prime Minister should stand up and call that out, because that's the whole point, isn't it, about defending this nation. Can I just ask you the obvious question from today? just very quickly. So, front page of the Telegraph, Starmer's social media ban is a rush job to cement his legacy. As the political edge of the sun, what would you say his legacy is, pal? Or will be?
I think squandering a massive majority in record time, becoming unpopular with such rapidity, and sort of not really having any conviction or ideology or driving motive, which is leading him on, just being buffeted by events. And I know that's not sort of an easy thing to package up on a political epitaph, but you know, it's hard to come up with.
Isn't the truth he's just not up to the job, not good enough? Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, I think that's probably a part of it. You know, I do think, and I know that we sort of talked about this before, I do think he's a decent man. And I think that one of the paradoxes at the heart of the Starmer government is that for someone who individually is so inoffensive, he seems to evoke this visceral reaction with a large part of the public. And I think that's right. I think it goes to what you and Carl were talking about. I think it is because he's a bit of a political chameleon. He's a shapeshifter. You know, he does seem to sort of like sway in the wind and sort of bend to whichever political idea is taken off at the time, and then ditches it with just, you know, equal haste. So yeah, I think that legacy is probably something he's thinking about at the moment.
Good man, Jack. Thank you so much indeed. We love the work you do. We appreciate you coming on. Political Edge of the Sun, the newspaper today. Fantastic. I mean, it's appalling, but brilliant coverage of the tragedy of adopted Preston Davey. And inside, a great piece from Jack about how we're treating, who's obviously missing the limelight. Suddenly thinks we should all be flying flags as the World Cup starts. Well, it has started. Tomorrow, of course, 9 o'clock, England kick off their campaign against Croatia. Everything you need on our sister station, TalkSport. Christine, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. It's Christine from Weymouth. Starmer knows exactly what he's doing. He knows that Nigel can meet all the youngsters on TikTok. So many are listening to him. He'll do anything he can for the other parties not to get to the youngsters. It's all about votes yet again.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'll just give you a bit of advice if you do a breakfast show. Don't eat a rice cake in an ad break. What's the point of a rice cake? Honestly, like cardboard. And I cannot. Sorry, I'm in a television and radio studio with video shots. I can't see videos of that poor little kid. Oh my God, it's dreadful. Baby Preston. The problem is that the British people are too quiet and too tolerant, so we just carry on. They should have spoken up decades ago as the rot set in, but nobody did, and now it is irreversible. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222, whatever you want to talk about. This is, of course, your show. We're going to cross, I think, to Westminster, are we? Sun is out, the sky is blue. Alex Bergkamp, Shadow Chancellor, Duchy of Lancaster, Shadow Northern Ireland Secretary. How many jobs has this man got? Alex, good morning, how are you?
Morning, Jeremy. I'm all right, thanks. How are you? So I didn't have you down as a rice cake eater, I have to say.
No, I'm not going to. It's Mrs. Kyle trying to make sure that the middle-aged spread doesn't continue. My friend, we'll talk digital ID, we'll talk Starmer. I'd like a comment on this abhorrent story this morning. I thought Carl Turner, when talking about baby Preston, summed it up. There'll be hand-wringing in the Commons, and then there'll be a national inquiry or whatever it's called, and it'll cost millions, and people will say, we must make changes. We've got to do more than this. We all remember Baby P. This kid and those vile, heinous monsters, something has to change, doesn't it, Alex Burkhardt?
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember the case of Peter Connolly that you described nearly 20 years ago. It was absolutely heartbreaking. And you know, what you have to have is a system that is just absolutely attuned to what's going on in families' lives, to make sure that you don't have this, you don't have these dreadful cases. But I'm, it's very hard to have hope unless you're seeing all of the root causes of these problems dealt with.
I completely agree. Now, many people will argue that one of the reasons that monsters like that are allowed to prey on children and end up in that scenario is, the advent of social media and the impact that has had. Yesterday we saw the Prime Minister, in many people's minds, rushing through under some blind desire to have some sort of legacy. Don't bother, he hasn't got one. This ban on social media under 16s. We had Matt Vickers on earlier who made the point that this is something that he fully supports. I pointed out that it's got to have gone further today because Apple and Google are saying that there'll have to be age checks with selfies or bank details or whatever for adults. And you'll understand a lot of people are going, no, damn right, anything we can do. Others are going, well, what about parents? And a lot of people are going, is this an example of this Labour government trying to control us more and more? What are your party's thoughts on this, Alex?
So, in principle, I'm absolutely in favour of a social media ban for under 16s. And I think there's just something very depressing about a generation of children who are growing up glued to these addictive algorithms, staring at their screens for 8-9 hours a day, not riding bikes, not climbing trees, not mucking about in the mud. I want children to be children again. And we've always, I'm generally against, as you know, Jeremy, I'm generally against banning things for adults, but we've always banned addictive things for children. We don't have people going around saying let's legalise alcohol for children, let's legalise smoking for children, and so on. And I know that no system's going to be perfect. I know that some clever kids are going to get round it and the rest of it. But you don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, right? What you have to do is just try and create a bit of space so that the majority of young people can have ordinary childhoods again. And I think that, whilst you're absolutely right, Starmer's raced this out. He's clearly thinking about his legacy. I'm not sure if he really believes in this policy at all. I mean,
well,
when
that's what I mean.
first put it in the Commons...
But that's the debate. I just want to say, it's a debate I had earlier. If you rush something out, you are undermining the British public's belief. They know that this man is convicted, has conviction about very little. They know there was no plan. And when he does this odious thing about all of a sudden it's important to... We all know it's focus group-led. We all know it's not inside him, and thus you don't feel that he actually wants to back it anyway. That's the point about the entirety of Starmer's premiership, isn't it?
Yeah, no, totally. It's very hard to find his kind of moral core, isn't it? What does he believe in? What is he fighting for? Yeah, he blows all over the place because I think what he really believes in is being Prime Minister. But I think that's going to come to an end quite soon, and it needs to, right? The country, the country needs to try and find some sense of stability and some sense of certainty. It's definitely not going to get that with Keir Starmer. But I do think that I do think the social media ban is, if it's done properly, could be a very good thing. But I have to say, it doesn't look like the government's thought it through very clearly.
A couple of things very quickly. Wes Streeting, a big article in The Sun today, apparently free from cabinet collective responsibility. He thinks we should fly the flag of St George with pride. I thought he was part of a government who saw it as divisive and far right. Have I missed the point there, Alex Burkhardt?
Yeah, I mean, well, I hope that Mr Streeting genuinely believes that and isn't just saying it because there's a World Cup tournament on and he wants to be the next leader of the Labour Party. So, I'm not quite sure why cabinet collective responsibility would have forbade him for saying that we should flag the flag of his own country.
Completely. And finally,
I don't quite know why he's waited until now.
And finally, and this is great, you'll get a chance. We love you, AB. What would you very briefly describe as Keir Starmer's legacy?
I think he has a legacy. It's just not a good one, right? His legacy is that his legacy is sort of scorched earth. Yeah. Everything's gotten worse, hasn't it? I mean, everything's gotten worse. The economy, you know, our reputation abroad, the military, you know, people's pride in this country, everything's gotten worse. That's his legacy.
Listen, mate, we love having you on. Kemi doing a grand job and getting the message through, and we appreciate always the Tories giving us time, my friend. Thank you, Alex Burkhardt. Shed a chance. The Duchy of Lancaster got 5 minutes of the news. Let's cross to the Chief Advisor to Reform on Global Affairs, Dr. Alan Mendoza. Alan, good morning.
Hello, Jeremy.
Good to have you on, my friend. Only got 5 minutes. I just wanted to throw a couple of things at you. The first is this extraordinary story yesterday that Russia was behind the firebombing of a house of a car linked to Keir Starmer. Yesterday, 2 men were found guilty of conspiring to carry out arson attacks. The court heard they were recruited online, I just struggle with this, by a Russian speaker called El Money, so that's a Russian speaker with a Spanish name, who promised the men payment. But then, when it was done, Russia started the conspiracy theory that it was 2 Ukrainian rent boys to attack our Prime Minister. Now, whatever your views on this, Alan Mendoza, our Prime Minister attacked by a foreign state, nobody's going up in arms. What's going on, man?
Well, exactly. No, you're quite right. This is an outrage. We've had, you know, an attack on a person, an institution, the head of government, and nobody appears to be doing anything about it. It is quite extraordinary that we're just prepared to tolerate endless Russian intervention, attacks, whatever, you know, trying to undermine our democracy, and we do nothing about it. I just don't understand it, to be honest.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? You know, lots has been written. I didn't even know about it, but the fact is he's under attack. Did you see the pictures? I thought that was quite interesting. Your Global Affairs. Starmer sat next to Trump at the G7. Trump arrived apparently bouncing around the place, saying, I've achieved a deal with Iran. Most people are saying, well, you're sort of worse off. You spent 30 billion quid and you haven't achieved bugger all. But Starmer, how thick is Starmer's skin? Does he not know what people think, including Trump? Or doesn't he care?
Well, it's ironic, Jeremy, that Starmer has a better reception on the international stage these days than he has at home. So, of course, he's going to run away from his Labour MPs who want to get rid of him, the British public who hate him, and everything else. On the international stage, he's just one of many people who Trump hates. So it's probably, nice to be part of a crowd.
Isn't that extraordinary? Actually, I should do this before we go. I mean, I know you're Global Affairs, Chief Advisor to Reform. What is Keir Starmer's legacy? I mean, many of the papers this morning throwing out that this social media ban is all about him trying to cement some sort of legacy. What that means is I'm going to implement a policy that a focus group has told me is popular, despite the fact that I disagreed with it before. What would, in your mind, Alan, be Keir Starmer's legacy?
Running the country into the ground. I think that's probably the one that most people will think about. I mean, he's gone from having won a landslide majority to being turfed out of office within 2 years. That's his legacy, and everyone knows why it's there. It's because he failed to govern from day one. So, there's, whatever he leaves with, it will be a period of disunity, a period when people have seen the country coming apart, and that will be on his political gravestone, unfortunately, for him.
In terms of global affairs and the way the world is, the light has been shone on the United Kingdom in the last couple of weeks about our lack of defence. And I said that I really hoped that if anything comes from what's been going on, that we do wake up. There was a big furore last week, of course. John Healey and Al Khan's leaving the government, saying that Starmer didn't want to defend the nation. I think at the next election, whenever it is, of course, immigration will be high up, as will cost of living. But I think it's a good thing, is it not, that finally we've all woken up to the fact that we need to have an army, an air force and a navy, not out of ego, but to protect ourselves the way the world is right now.
Well, the threats have been there for some time now, and so public opinion is only now catching up to the reality, which is that we've got to have more money spent on defence. It's unfortunate because, of course, people would rather it be spent elsewhere, but in reality, if we cannot protect the nation, if we cannot defend the people of this country, then anything else we do is going to be fatally undermined anyway. So it is a good thing that debate is happening. It's obviously in the state of the world that's led us to this place, but Britain cannot be weak and cannot be undefended in the face of threats. And that is why I think that, a amount of light and heat is being thrown on this, because it's absolutely a central question to the country and indeed to our politics.
What about globally? You hear different things. I speak to Harry Cole in America. I've got friends in other parts of the world, but in America, the leaders of the free world, what do they make of the United Kingdom? This sort of paralysed prime minister with no conviction who flip-flops all over the place, and the problems that we seem to have in terms of immigration. Do they think, good God, you should have a man like this, or do they think that's acceptable? Do you get any idea of what happens in that instance?
If it's our enemies, Jeremy, they love it. But of course, our friends are wondering what kind of ally we could be in the event of a crisis. Are we going to be able to support operations? Are we going to be able to defend ourselves, or will we need others to come and defend us? Those sorts of questions that have never really been asked about Britain before are now being asked worldwide. And that, I'm afraid, is a legacy of 30 years of defence spending being run down by both the historic parties who've controlled government. This has been a long-term process. The chickens have now come home to roost, and it's essential that we get a grip on it to turn around, because your international stature is very much dependent on your hard power. And right now, Britain is seen as a soft touch on the hard power stage, and that's why we are being laughed at by friends and enemies alike.
Dr. Alan Mendoza, thank you, my friend. I'd love to have more time. Always mad here on Breakfast, but we thank you so much indeed. Globalist advisor to Reform UK. Just, it's almost 8 o'clock. On the way, the First Lady of Reform, Runcorn and Helsby MP Sarah Pochin in the next hour, Professor Anthony Glees, Mike Neville, loads going on. 0344 499 1000 for your phone calls, 87222. What is Keir Starmer's legacy? News at 8 is next.
Remember the case where we had the Prime Minister's house before he moved into Turn Downing Street, another property owned, and his car being attacked, firebombed effectively. Well, 2 men have just been found guilty of plotting to damage property linked to the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. They were found guilty following a trial at the Old Bailey in London. They are 22-year-old Ukrainian Roman Lavrinovich and 27-year-old Romanian Stanislav Karpuch. They've both been found guilty of plotting to damage property linked to the Prime Minister.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
My fellow Americans, let me begin by congratulating the team at NASA and our brave astronauts on the successful launch of Artemis 2. It was quite something. It will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown and will very substantially pass the moon, go around it, and come back home from a distance that has never been done before. It's amazing.
to that suit being pressurized and expanded, as well as the umbilicals being connected.
We are now falling to the moon rather than rising away from Earth. It is an amazing milestone.
We are standing by for the Integrity crew aboard Orion to surpass the Apollo 13 record.
Integrity, we're now resuming operational audio contact.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, my friends. Just welcome along. Talk Breakfast is on, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock. Brit, just gone 8 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, whatever you're doing across the UK. But have a dull start. I was expecting... Apparently we've got a heat wave on the way. They'll all be moaning about how hot it is within a minute or two. If you do want to be on today, your views on the day's news, always welcome. That's what the show is about. We're not going to be able to pump out anything more than what is happening. Last week, all those horrors in Belfast. It's a terrible story about a child that was murdered by two heinous individuals today, but that's the news of the day. What do you make of it all? 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. The big debate today, a debate that leads on from this awful story on the front page of The Sun, Betrayed, the story of baby Preston Davey, murdered, abused, failed by social services, and two heinous men who destroyed him and ruined his life. And the words don't even sum up what I think about that, but it has sort of focused people's minds on this social media ban. And it's a really interesting debate. Yesterday, of course, Keir Starmer, the view of many, front of the Times today is quite interesting. They say authority age check on phones to access social media. Yesterday, Starmer, you'll remember, stands up and goes, under 16s, no Instagram, no TikTok. We're going to control it. We're going to verify it. We're going to have time checks, all that. And it sort of split the nation. A lot of people going, yeah, good. So that people like those two vile, heinous criminals can't get away with it, and our kids have become listless and it's all they do. Others jump in and go, no, it's about parents, do more, parents this, parents that, not the guy. And loads of other people jumping in and go, oh my God, this is state control. What we found out today is that on the basis of under 16s being banned, people like Apple and Google will be forcing you, if you want to make a comment in a tweet or a post, you'll have to provide a selfie or your bank details, or you'll have to provide personal information. Again, is that good? Does it make us more accountable? 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Liam in Liverpool. I hate Starmer, but personally support the social media ban for under 16s. I personally think social media is a big part to play in youth mental health degeneration and the general behaviour that is seeing kids decline mentally. That's interesting as well. Other people disagreeing. The other news story today, of course, we learnt yesterday that Russia was allegedly behind the firebombing of a house and a car linked to our Prime Minister. Yesterday, two men were found guilty of conspiring to carry out arson attacks. The court heard... Right, I'm going to do this with a straight face, that a Russian speaker called Elmani... Now, I would have thought he would have been called Dravinsky, but he was called Elmani, so it was a Russian-speaking Spaniard who said to the two men, you do it, you bomb his front door and his car, which is heinous. You know, a foreign state involved with the Prime Minister, and nobody said anything. But then was this conspiracy theory, apparently. I knew nothing about this till I came to Wednesday. Russia started a conspiracy theory that it was revenge by two Ukrainian rent boys. It's an absolute outrage. Morning, Brian.
Morning, JK. Brian from Southend. On the rent boy thing, has there been some sort of media blackout or reporting restrictions put on this case? Because in any other country, if someone tries to attack the Prime Minister or President, it's front page news, it's headlines, and it would be throughout the trial. But there's been nothing. And, you know, why would Russia actually think Starmer's a threat? They probably think he's an idiot anyway. There's something weird about it.
Well, honestly, I don't want to be... I'm not into conspiracy theories, my dears, but I mean, yes, let's get this right. Our PM is allegedly attacked by a foreign state. There's a rumour of rent boys and nobody does anything. 0344 499. When you have a story like that, who do you need? 3, 2, 1. Good morning, Sarah Pochin, Runcorn Helsby for Reform. How are you? Good
morning, Jeremy. I'm really well, thank you.
Good. On a serious note, Sarah, straight face, our Prime Minister, we are told, was attacked by a foreign state. His front door was bombed, his car was firebombed, and then the Russians started a conspiracy about 2 Ukrainian rent boys. Keep your face straight. And why have we heard nothing about it? That's absolutely outrageous.
It is all very murky and very weird. I agree with the last commentator. But yeah, I don't really understand it. My cynical head says to me that there's something a bit murky going on here. I don't know. Look, why would Russia want to bother with Keir Starmer? Is all I'd say. I can't. No one else wants to bother.
But why wouldn't Russia be happy that we've got an incompetence, legacy-free Prime Minister who doesn't believe in controlling our borders or having any form of military involvement or support for the nation? I would have thought that that would have been a plumb great moment for them, absolutely categorically.
I just feel this story isn't quite right, and you know, I almost feel like, look, let's not waste time talking about this in a way, because I feel like there's some information missing on this story, and I think perhaps more will come to light. Either they're trying to brush something under the carpet, or I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me.
Let's leave that out there. He was. My professional opinion would be, well, it's not professional, is it? Prime Minister attacked by foreign state, and we do nothing. Yes, and also slightly. I know, you know, the Russian guy, Russian speaking, had a Spanish name called El Money. I mean, you know, Gorbachev to El Money doesn't really work. Anyway, let's move on. Sarah, I'd really love to know yours and Reform's view on what happened yesterday. Keir Starmer, I know, has flip-flopped. We know flip-flops. The social media ban on 16s and under, I find myself sort of in the middle of this debate. I've got kids, and I absolutely freely admit that we all as parents allow them to have too much time, probably when it suits us. I'm an old-fashioned man who thinks that parents should take more responsibility. But when you look at the heinous murder of Preston Davey this morning and those vile people who control websites and groom kids and do terrible things and put content, is it a good thing or is it state control? Where do you stand on this?
Well, I think there's two subjects here. There's the killers of this dreadful case of Preston. Look, those are evil people. Okay, let's not excuse their behaviour because of social media. The fact is, they are evil people that should be absolutely taken out of society forevermore. And there are questions to be answered about why so many people, and yet again in these cases, have not been held accountable. You know, when is that going to be happening? Whose decision was it? Are those social workers still working for Oldham Council? Have they been moved to another council? That's what we need to get to the bottom of, because was it excuses for people not wanting to be accused of being homophobic? So, look, I think that there are some really big issues, and we mustn't wrap this up in the social media sort of conversation.
Would Reform believe that social workers should be prosecuted?
100%.
Yeah.
Listen, I worked in family courts. As you know, I've worked in the criminal court for 20 years. 100%. You know, this baby was taken to hospital with a broken elbow. A baby doesn't break its elbow. You know, this baby was taken 8 times and no one did anything. I'm concerned that there was a fear of nobody, because these 2 adopted parents were 2 men, that nobody wanted to be accused of, you know, being anti-gay rights, that it was their right to have an adopted child. Well, that's a whole nother debate.
Well, you know what, right? And I've always done this show as I see it, and Christian's just opened his eyes. You've probably just alighted on something that a lot of people go, oh. But let's remember Callacane, released from a mental institution to murder 3 innocent victims in Nottingham because the psychiatric nurses thought it was racist to keep him, you know, that it would be perceived as that. You've just raised the point of the morning in my mind. Was nothing done through incompetence? Was it done because, oh, box ticking, 2 gay men who have adopted a child, that won't look very good? That's a really salient point. Either way, here's an interesting comment for you, Sarah Pochin. Dan in Epsom So Starmer's really worried about the welfare of our kids, yeah? So why has he not stopped hundreds of thousands of illegal, unvetted men invading our shores, endangering English women and kids? It's a good point, isn't it?
Well, I was going to come on to that because how is it that Starmer is quite happy to force the tech giants to use facial recognition for age control on this social media ban, and yet not one single migrant arriving on our shores gets their facial recognition biometrics recorded, their fingerprints recorded, and so on. It's an absolute disgrace. Again, this is an example of where it suits him because, you know, he's 2 days out from a by-election and, you know, potentially weeks away from a challenge to his leadership to try and create some goodwill before he goes over the social media ban. And yet he won't do any facial recognition for the criminals, potentially, and we know there's criminals amongst them that are coming into our shores. But Jeremy, you asked my opinion on the social media ban. My opinion, and I'm quite old-fashioned about this, is that parents need to take more responsibility for their children. And look, when my boys are only in their 20s, I'm not that old, you know, phones were around. We used to put phones, there was a phone ban at mealtimes. So we always sat around, even if we argued, we still talked. Phones were banned from the table. I go out to restaurants sometimes, I'm sure you're the same. You see parents allowing their children to sit there glued to phones or tablets. No, parents, take responsibility for your children.
Now, you see, the problem is my wife is right now in the car with Oliver and Iris, and Oliver already at 6 says he wants to be a YouTuber. A genius, right? But all parents, I completely agree, but we should also be really honest. Or you're not, because your kids are older. We've all gone, I need half an hour for a shower. I need to take the rubbish out or empty the ditch. Just have your iPads for half an hour. And so there is, of course, there are controls. He plays Roblox. She's got controls, Vic, and timings. I don't understand how to make it work. So you're right, but there's also the argument, the VPNs, which I didn't realise was what it meant until yesterday, can get round this. And somebody was saying within an hour of what he'd announced or bringing it in, kids would have worked out ways round this. So I don't know. Is it a combination of the state and the parents and the big tech? Or is it, right? I mean, many people, look, straight away, Jay in Bradford, this social media ban is nothing to do with the kids' safety. It's a Trojan horse for digital ID. That's what a lot of people think. They think that Starmer is doing what he always does, which is under the guise of something that he cares about. Not, it's deeper. That's it.
Look, Jeremy, let me just say this. He wants to give, or he's going to give 16-year-olds the vote. Where do they get that information from if they can't access...
Blue Sky, which is a left-wing website that you can still access, by the way. Did you hear about that yesterday? They banned Instagram. They banned... help me out. What are the other things? TikTok. They banned X under 16. The only one they didn't ban under 16 was Blue Sky, which throws out left-wing policies. I don't know. Here's my point to you. What? Here's my point to you. You know, like you said you were a magistrate. I couldn't work this out yesterday. So at 15 years and 364 days, I'm going to say to my boy, you can't watch that, you can't have that, and 12 hours later he can vote for the next government.
But where are these kids going to get that information from on how to vote if they can't read and access social media? I'll tell you where it comes from. It comes from the left-wing teachers in the schools that are brainwashing our children. This is another example of telling our children what to think, not how to think. And this is about controlling the information that they see. So, yes, it is another form of state control. And it is also, as I say, taking the responsibility away from parents. But you cannot, on the one hand, give people the vote and then say at 16 and 17, I'm going to limit your scrolling at night. Make up your mind.
Yeah.
Are people at 16 adults or not?
I don't think kids at 16. I don't think kids at 16 should vote. We're seeing pictures, by the way. I'd love your take on this. The G7 summit is in France. Nice morning. They walk up and down the path. Starmer apparently likes being abroad because he gets a better reception than he does at home. Sarah Pochin.
Of course he does. Nobody knows what he stands for at home. He's deeply unpopular, and he knows he's on his way out. So this is probably one of his last few little jollies abroad, and he can schmooze up to the EU. We all know they all want to take us back in. And I just hope that the British people know that, Andy Burnham, I'm sorry, I've said his name, oh dear.
No, listen, we can talk. I want to ask you about Makerfield, and I want to ask you a question that for many people on Reform side won't answer, but there's a reason for this question. If you believe what you read, Rupert Lowe's Restore by social media ways, backed by Elon Musk. Yesterday, he invited Tommy Robinson to join his party, which I got attacked for even mentioning. That's a fact. Many people are believing that enough people will have their heads turned by Restore to hand victory to Andy Burnham in Makerfield on Thursday, which would then mean he enters Parliament, challenges Starmer. Now, my theory, and I want your response to this, is if that happens and Andy Burnham becomes the Prime Minister without a sort of national election and debate, pushes this incompetent government still further to the left, I definitely believe that the British people will not forgive the right, if in that case Restore, in that will shine very heavily upon that situation. That's how I see it. And I know you're a Reform MP. It would be nice to know your thoughts. We will list all the candidates because we do the job properly. What are your thoughts about Thursday, Sarah?
My thoughts are that it will be an utter betrayal of this country if we lose this by-election because the vote has been split on the right. And of course, I urge everybody to not do that and to put their vote in one place. And of course, that would be for Reform. That's what I would say.
Can I ask a question, though? Can I ask a question about politics in general? You won Runcorn and Helsby by 6 votes. It was the closest by-election in the history of British politics. Almost, you are a history maker. But here's what I don't get. And you will, in Makerfield, decide that is your right. 76,000 people deciding the next Prime Minister doesn't sit with me. But here's my other issue about the whole thing. You've got this guy who has a figure, he's a figurehead, Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester Mayor. But people that are voting for him, it can't be for Labour. Labour's polling nationally worse than anything, out of sight under Starmer. Are they voting for change? It's got to be the only time, and the reason I bring up Makerfield is it's got to be the only time in British political history where an incumbent Prime Minister wants his own party to lose in a by-election.
Yeah, I think people are voting because they're starry-eyed about the prospect of having Burnham as their MP, who then becomes the Prime Minister. But, oh, my goodness, they will so regret it if that's what happens, because Burnham has already said yesterday, hasn't he, he's going to pay people so much more money again to live on benefits.
Ah, the magic money tree, the magic money tree.
But let's not forget Burnham wants to take us back into Europe, and that means losing the pound and getting the euro in Burnham's eyes. Listen, we cannot underestimate the damage that somebody like Andy Burnham could do to this country. And of course, I urge the people of Makerfield not to get swept up in the fact that their MP could be the next Prime Minister, because I tell you what, he'll be gone anyway at the next general election.
Very interesting. Sarah, we love having you on as we see pictures of 2 grown men going for a walk in a forest. That's apparently the G7. I don't know if I described that correctly. Sarah Pochin, Reform's MP for Runcorn and Helsby. That's Volodymyr Zelensky and Macron. Going for a walk at the G7 summit. Pictures there live and exclusive on Talk Breakfast. Whatever you want to talk about, social media, Keir Starmer being, our Prime Minister, being attacked by a foreign state, hit the front door, not the back, it was the front door, firebombed, and his car, outrageous. The Makerfield by-election, it's all going on. Talking of which, this is a public service announcement. This is your list of candidates on Thursday's by-election in Makerfield. Thank you all. Jake Austin stands for the Liberal Democrats, Count Binface for his own party, Count Binface Party, Andy Burnham, of course, the Labour Party, Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party, John Dyer for the Independents, Ed Gemmell, the Climate Party, Paul Gould, the Independent, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official Monster Raving Loony Party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK, Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, the Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin the EU, and Michael Stanley, the Conservative Party. That's your list of candidates. 22, we're live across the United Kingdom. This is Talk Breakfast, and we go, oh, whoa. Because Oliver William Robin Kyle is in the car and he will be sat there with a smile on his face now, YouTuber Supreme, won't go in, literally won't go in unless his dad says good morning to him. Hello, mate, I'll pick you up later, Rissy Rowe. Mrs K. 0344 499 1000. Jez Starmer's legacy will be that he single-handedly caused the worst racism, anti-Semitism and division in a country that at one time was the most tolerant country anywhere in the world. Sean in Gloucester, Keith Stalin's legacy is failure. Christina in Spain, she's seen the light. Loving the show. So the Speaker has not responded to Matt Vickers regarding 1 minute silence for Henry Novak. Nigel Evans told you that he would also message the Speaker. When he's next on, can you ask him? He's on this morning, 8:23. Morning, Adam.
Hi, Jezza. Adam from Bournemouth. I think Starmer's trying to push this social media ban through for 16-year-olds. And he thinks that people are gonna go, oh yeah, look what Starmer. I don't think it will. It will fall back on Andy Burnham when he becomes PM, and it will be Andy Burnham and him trying to fight against it. Everyone will forget about it that Starmer brought it in the end. When Starmer's gone, that'll be it. It will be Burnham that will get it in the neck. I don't think this is going to happen, Jez. I think it will be. They will cancel it in the end. I think it will become too much, and Labour know it because they want them 16-year-old votes, and they won't get them if they carry on with this.
When it comes to 2028, when we've established what the solutions are, then Rupert Lowe and Nigel Farage, if he's still in position, and indeed Kemi Badenoch, if she's at the table, have to be grown up, and they've got to sit round a table and make sure they get a thumping majority one way or another on a collective ticket which delivers this country back to safety. And there will be no greater proponent for that taking place than myself. We will put lots and lots of pressure on people to make sure that that happens.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:26. We're live across the UK. Coming next, this is brilliant, right? Because Christian just gave me the line of all time. Mike Neville, a retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. Now, I didn't know this, so a couple of our kids go to the same school, and I said, do you live there? He said, no, they're the kids with Mrs Neville and everything. You've been married... How many times?
4 times.
And I've been married 3 times, which means that Christian has said that me and Mike Neville are Henry VIII. There we go. So welcome back. This is Henry VIII. I'm sure. Good to have you on, my friend. So much I want to talk about. Let's just do a voice note to get us in the frame of mind. This is Steve on social media, buddy.
Jeremy, Steve from Yorkshire. I think the word everyone's looking for is gerrymandering. That's exactly what this government are doing. They're just using the youngsters. They're using a system so they can basically get more votes. Gerrymandering.
Interesting, your thoughts on that. 0344 499 1000. Mike, much I want to talk to you about. I want to talk about the Keir Starmer arson attack. I want to talk to you also about how the killer of that bless him, Henry Novak, that awful Vikram Digwell. We're going to, the Court of Appeal are looking at his sentence. Just to start, you're a father, you're an ex-copper. Front page of The Sun today. These vile human beings, these two men, murdered, abused, sexually abused this poor little kid, Preston Davey. 8 times he was taken to hospital with bones broken, internal injuries, and eventually he died. I said at 7 o'clock, and I make no apology, this is my opinion, not talks. Why are we allowing these people to still live on this earth? Capital punishment for me as a father.
I agree. And I've said before, Joe, I would be the hangman. I will be the hangman. So I have no qualms about doing that. People are found guilty. I would hang them. These two men need to be hanged. We had the ridiculous nonsense. And what the other thing is as well is the last men hanged in this country were in '64, and there were the awful time of Roy Jenkins, who's as bad as Blair in destroying this nation, in my view. But when they suspended the death sentence, '65, they said life will mean life, and we had that with the Moors murderers. You know, they were 65. But since then, it's got progressively less and less and less. And you see the Henry Novak's killer, Digwell, he's got 21. How's 21 years when you're about 20 years old? That's no, you're out, aren't you? And so life should mean life, but we should hang people. The other fear I've got here with this case is another one of these two-tier issues. Two gay guys adopt a child, and when it came to the decision-making process, were people being influenced by not judging, are these the right people, whoever they are, to adopt a child, or is there some political correctness going on here, influence, just like we believe what happened with the Henry Nowak case? All this needs to be looked at. We need this.
Sarah Pochin just brought this up, and I have to say to both of you, brilliant contributors, I hadn't thought about it. This kid went to hospital 8 times. Yeah. If you think, and I said this 10 minutes ago, that Valdo Calacane was released from maximum security mental institution despite the authorities knowing that he was a danger because, and I quote, the nurse thought it would appear racist to keep him there. Sarah Pochin just said it, you've alluded to this. These men that were given, they're gay, I don't care. They adopted the baby, I don't care. But the truth of the matter is, were they not looked into because it was box-ticking, because they'd be accused of being, I don't know, homophobic? The fact is, a kid innocently died. Talking capital punishment, we have a view, there's another view. What do you say to the people who say you're lowering yourself to that level, life, you bring the life up, it should mean the life is your torturous. That is what you do.
I don't think so, because these prisons these days are they torturous, and I think if you kill somebody, that moment when that noose is around your neck and the bag goes on your head, that is when you'll fear it. And you can be...
Does it make us as bad as the people that do it?
No, I don't think it makes us bad at all, because, and also it's the fact of how much money did it cost to keep Peter Sutcliffe alive, Ian Brady, all these individuals who just brought wickedness to this world and then just cost a fortune and then go on, like a Beatty, the one who's in prison, attacking prison officers. So they don't stop being evil. They're just evil in a confined place.
Is it not fair to say that there are certain people who are so heinous and so evil, they do not deserve to be part of our society?
I absolutely agree.
And I'll tell you something I'm going to have a go at Starmer about, because I'm watching pictures live from the G7 summit. It's in France, of course, the leaders, the big 7 leaders. If that had been Trump on a plane over to that, he'd have mentioned this case. I want somebody in government to be out already saying how disgusting. I don't want an inquiry. I want somebody to do something about it, whether it's prosecute the social services, whether it's change the laws, whether it's stop the box ticking. So honestly, as a dad, and we talked about it off air, it makes me feel sick. And I know that I would...
That poor, innocent little baby abused, these wicked men, you know, these wicked men. And that's what it is. We need to recognise that some people are evil and need to be dealt with. And
I'm on the plane to the G7 and I'm Keir Starmer. I'm a dad. I'm going to talk to reporters about this case,
right? But he's not like you. He's a process man. I'll have an inquiry. We'll have 3 months lessons where we learn. He's robotic. He doesn't have those emotions, I'm sure of it. And if he does say anything, it's because somebody's fed him a line.
Absolutely. Focus group. Let's talk about the other story from your point of view as an ex-copper, and I'll read this as straight as I can, and don't make me laugh. We learnt this morning that Russia was behind the firebombing of a house and a car linked to our Prime Minister. Yesterday, 2 men were found guilty of conspiring to carry out arson attacks on the property, the front door, and a car linked to Starmer. The court heard they were recruited online by a Russian-speaking person called El Money. right, who promised them payment, and then, when they'd done it, Russia started the conspiracy theory that it was revenge against Starmer by 2 Ukrainian rent boys. Now, my question to you, with a dead straight face, apart from I've never known a Russian with a Spanish name, El Mani, never mind, is our Prime Minister is attacked by a foreign state and nobody said anything?
It is a bizarre thing, isn't it? And the less he says, the more the jokes and the more the joke. Remember, as a boy, I remember the Jeremy Thorpe case. You know, the more the sort of silly jokes come out, and the silence over the whole thing. All you do is create a vacuum, and people will fill that vacuum. I mean, he doesn't seem to have ever been called to court as I don't know if he went to court as a witness.
Let's just put it out there, and you're dead right. Our Prime Minister, his home was firebombed and his car was firebombed and nobody said anything. Yeah. Would you not raise a question of the European Security Council or whatever it's called, NATO or something? I mean, hold on a second, that's a hostile act, isn't it?
It's just all very weird. And the lack of reporting, really, I'm surprised. Which of the news stations are mentioning? I'm guessing it's not on BBC or Sky. Because it's just the whole thing. And they went to trial, so as he's the victim. So you have to call the victim to say, is this what happened at your property? Well, this is my house and somebody burnt down the door. You know, so you have to get that evidence. That's part of the trial. But I don't know if that ever happened. Did he go to court in secret? Or the whole proceedings seem to have been buried under things. And God only knows, have these men been paid off? Or it's just a very weird story.
And I didn't know this until I came in this morning, Your Honour, the conspiracy theory that it was revenge by 2 Ukrainian rent boys. Where's that come from?
Yeah, well, I'm not being funny. Why wouldn't Russia want a weak Prime Minister in charge of the UK?
Not doing anything about him. He's a complete joke. They've got no army, no navy.
There's no point. You know, so why do it? You know, he says it's as bad as it will get. Why? It's not like we've got Mrs Thatcher in, and you're blaming Mrs Thatcher for having some rent boys burn a house down. A strong Prime Minister, something like that. We've got the weakest Prime Minister in living memory, as I can think.
Yeah.
And we've got nothing's going on. Our army's falling apart and whatever else. The armed forces, they've got no ships. So why mess around? Just let it get on with it.
Don't be disrespectful. We did board 4 days after he admitted, Starmer, that he had no money for defence and the Defence Secretary and the Armed Forces Minister left. He got the Marines to board that vessel, didn't he?
Yeah. Where is it now?
Did you see the footage?
No, I didn't see the footage.
The guy with the camera was already on the boat as the Marines stormed it.
Oh, right.
I'm just saying, I could be accused of being fake. And now the other story before we go, and this is really important. The 21-year prison sentence, you touched upon this before, handed to Henry Novak's murderer has been referred to the Court of Appeal. This was the case which triggered protest and the claims of two-tier policing. Vikram Digwa repeatedly stabbed young Henry, an 18-year-old student, with a 21-centimetre Sikh ceremonial knife during altercation in Southampton December last year. Prosecutors had argued for a 25-year starting point for Digwa's prison term. We'll go back to your comment about life is life.
How old's this Digwa? 20-something?
21, yeah.
So 21. So even if they get 25 years, at 46, I'm 59. You've got a life. Still got a life ahead of you. 20 more years. If he gets out of prison, he's potentially got 40 odd years more to live.
Why shouldn't he spend his entire time languishing in jail for the rest of his days?
Well, as I said, when they suspended the death sentence in '65, that was the promise. Life would mean life. But the politicians have continually watered it down, and you see people receive like 18 years, for a murder. It's quite incredible. And then the politicians wonder, I wonder why there's a lot more murders than there was in 1964. Well, there's a lot more murders because people know they can walk away. That's why villainy, like the great train robbers, did not take pistols, because they knew if somebody shot somebody, killed them, then people were going to get hanged. They knew that. No, there's no fear of that at all.
Would you bring capital punishment back?
As I said, I would be the hangman, Jeremy. I would pull the lever.
You don't go with the theory that I'd like to point out I don't, with the people who go, Yes, but that makes you worse than the person that perpetrated the crime.
Not at all, because it's dealt with in a cold... It's a bit like when you're a father, you get brought home, right, he's done this and that.
How many kids have you got? You've had 4 wives.
I've got 4 children, they're all very good, and I have to say...
I've got 6.
I get on with my ex-wives, and my current wife is very beautiful and lovely.
I'd like to agree with the last part about my current wife. I'm afraid I can't agree with the first part. So we've got 7 wives and 10 kids between us.
Well...
It's going to be like an Amish settlement if we live together, wouldn't it?
I know my failings. My failings are those of King David being a biblical...
what does that mean? What did King David do?
He had many wives, didn't he?
We love you, man. You're here forever. Thank you, though. The Digwa thing, very important. This baby and social services capital punishment, and also the Starmer thing. That doesn't add up.
That is just totally weird, and we need to look at it. They created their own conspiracy theory there.
They have indeed. Mike Neville, top man, retired Scotland Yard DCI, always welcome on this show. 22 minutes to 9. Morning, Carl.
Hi, Jeremy. Carl from Coventry here. When I was seeing the headline, to me, it was just... I just couldn't bring myself to read it. And even now I haven't really read the whole lot because that thing just makes me feel so sick. But what really makes me mad is the millions on the inquiry. I mean, we should have learnt from Baby P, obviously we haven't. But why should it cost millions and millions just to work out who it was that never done their job properly? It should be dead simple. You know, when you're at work and something goes wrong, the manager asks, well, what happened? And it gets down and you find out who happens, what happened, very quickly, and it's sorted out. Either someone getting the sack or laid off. But it's sorted out dead quick. And I can't understand why it takes millions just to work out who got it wrong.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 20 minutes to 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Talk Breakfast. It is, of course, the home of Common Sense and the home of the Alarm Clock Brits. Thank you so much. Jake from Plymouth, I think, is spot on about the under-16 social media ban. Honestly, I reckon it's just a way to revive the national ID scheme. It's not been forgotten, especially since it popped up in the King's speech, especially in the end, though, it'll mean adults have to show ID too. I think it's connected. You might not, but thanks for hearing me out. If you are watching on YouTube, live pictures of the G7 summit in France, the breakfast meeting. It's rather frosty. It was a minute ago because Starmer sat next to Trump. That's the first time he's seen him since he said, you're not exactly Churchill. Oh, let's have a cup of tea. Jezza Farage has approximately 4.8 times as many followers on TikTok as Starmer. If it were the other way around, I wonder if Starmer would still be banning a section of future voters from using TikTok, says Mark in Norwich. Oh, the I don't know. That might be right. Morning, Jez. Mark from Dover. This PM's legacy peeing off the entire population, except for the unions, and little under 24 months. Dave H. Well, scratch it. Never mind. I flew flags on the 14th of June, the 44th anniversary of the Falkland Islands liberation. Dave in Dorset, a Falklands veteran. Good man. Another Dave. So everyone has to provide ID to prove they're over 16. All a bit weird. David in the Cotswolds. Not David Beckham in the Cotswolds. Do you think it was Beck's? No. Good morning, Jez. Last time I checked, Ukraine wasn't a member of the G7. Great show, Bill in Northumberland. Why is Zelensky there, then? That's an interesting... Invited. Did Piers Morgan get invited? I imagine Piers Morgan's probably at the G7 summit. He's absolutely everywhere. Piers Morgan, maybe he comes out of the trees. That didn't sound right. Rosa from Yorkshire, Starmer is pushing his legacy forward through the social media ban. That sort of incompetence and dictatorial governance. I don't mean to be rude, right? I'm not sure he can possibly have a legacy. Starmer, his legacy is to chuck out a load of policy ideas to see what sticks. Then, when he knows the least popular idea, he seeks to implement it, only to have only to then U-turn a few months later when he realises how bad it is. He has absolutely no political antennae. No, Dave in Cheltenham goes further. Another dictatorial move by Starmer. Big move in our legislation. No vote in Parliament. He broke parliamentary protocol by announcing it to the press rather than in the Commons. Morning, Sarah.
Morning, Jeremy. Great show. I think Starmer's planned this just to have more control, this digital thing with the phones. I'm not even wanting to update my phone at the minute because somebody else has updated theirs and they're asking for all their passwords and everything. They can't access some of their apps. So I don't want to do that update. But also, I think it's all part of his 2030 agenda. I really do, because Brussels are rushing it through that by the end of 2029 we will all be digitalised.
Wow, the cynicism. Morning, gents. Here's a really good one before we go to our next guest. Alex in Belfast. I'm going to sneeze. Will MPs be exempt from social media ID? I just thought I'd drop that in whilst coughing off air. 0344 499 1000. Let's say a very good morning. Professor Anthony Glees is a security and intelligence expert. Anthony, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning.
I'm struggling somewhat with the story about Starmer and the firebombing. I don't want to appear to be in any way cynical, Anthony. I shall read it out with a straight face. We discovered yesterday that Russia was behind the firebombing of a house and car linked to our Prime Minister. 2 men found guilty of conspiring to carry out the arson attacks. The court heard, straight face, Anthony, they were recruited online by a Russian-speaking person with a Spanish name, El Money, who paid them and then started this conspiracy theory, which I'd never heard about, Your Honour, until I walked in this morning, that it was in fact 2 revengeful gay Ukrainian rent boys. I don't want to get into a debate about that. I want to ask you this. It smells to me this only because our Prime Minister is attacked, his property is attacked, by a foreign state. And we've heard absolutely, Anthony Glees, nothing about it. Am I being cynical or am I being honest?
Well, I don't think you're being cynical, Jeremy, and I think you are asking the right questions. Point number 1, this is a very, very serious matter. It is actually not a laughing matter. Yeah. You say I need to keep a serious face. I have a serious face because this is a very serious matter. He's our Prime Minister. You may not like him. I didn't vote for him myself, but he is our
Prime Minister. Absolutely.
And this is a blatant attempt by Russia, by Putin, to intimidate our Prime Minister. And it needs to be called out and it needs to be acted against. It beggars belief. It beggars belief to imagine that Putin was not behind this. We can come to that because Commander Helen Flanagan underlined in her statement to the press that there was absolutely no evidence that a state actor was behind what these 2 guys did. I have to say, from my objective academic perspective, that is complete nonsense. Putin has been doing this all over Europe. Just imagine that MI6 had orchestrated a similar attack in Moscow on Putin. What would the Russians be saying?
But this is my point. The reason that I said what I said about a straight face is, unfortunately, and there's a reason for me doing that, unfortunately, because the sheer madness of this and the absolute radio silence has created this febrile environment where people are throwing out conspiracy theories because we've had nothing official. My question still remains, I don't know any other country in the world if their Prime Minister, their elected leader, was firebombed by a nation, another nation. He hasn't even talked about it. He hasn't raised it. I don't understand. And that's where people make up their own minds, Anthony, don't they?
Well, I do agree with you. But what I want to hear, it is true that people like me, I believe even on your station on Talk TV a year ago, when this happened, I said at the time, these two attacks, one attack on a car that once belonged to Starmer, or one attack on Starmer's house before he moved into 10 Downing Street, that, you know, you kind of could talk your way around it. But both these things, and it's very, very difficult, of course, against the law to try to find out the name of a previous car owner. So, and who would know exactly where Starmer lived unless they'd underdone a lot of intelligence work about this. So clearly there was a Mr. Big here. And yes, at one remove from the Russian leader, at two removes. But these are the people that came to Salisbury and had a go at Sergei Skripal. These are the people who've been busy getting rid of oligarchs Putin has fallen out with here in London, in the UK. So why aren't we calling this out for what it actually is?
But without, I'm not trying to be anything. I'm trying to give all sides. I don't know, but because they haven't mentioned it and it's so outrageous, Anthony, that is why people in their millions are saying, well, there's got to be more than this. There's got to be more than this. And that's the fear. Let me throw at you. I said straight-faced for this reason. Have you ever heard of a Russian speaker with a Spanish name called El Money? Doesn't say it makes sense at all. A Russian speaker, you would expect sort of, you know, Zelenskin. I don't even think of a Russian name. But people are saying that the abject silence beggars belief as well, and that's the issue. And it's just, by the way, pictures. Trump's arrived at breakfast at the G7. Brilliant. I find it astonishing, absolutely astonishing. And you were, you know, one of the best security intelligence experts, and I suspect that you're pretty open-mouthed about the response. I can't see it changing either, somehow.
Well, I think something has got to happen. Yes, they're meeting at Evian, and I would just ask you to spell Evian backwards, and it would come up with the word naive. And I think our cops, although I have high regard, you know, after all, they caught these two jokers, Lavrinovich and Pochinok, two complete
Now they sound Russian. They don't sound Spanish, do they?
They don't sound Spanish, but I think in a sense it's coincidental that they were Ukrainian, because the Russians use any criminals who want the money to do things. And one of these two people didn't even know who Keir Starmer was. I'm sure that is absolutely true. However, somebody big did know about this car. Somebody big did know. Obviously, Sir Keir was in number 10 Downing Street, but they didn't dare get anywhere near that, and they couldn't get anywhere near that. So an attack on his house, lived in by his sister-in-law, that is mafia tactics, and it's mafia tactics here in the UK. The cops did catch them. I think that's a good thing, but only after the attack had taken place. Remember, please, in 2024, our very good Director General of MI5, Sir Ken McCallum, warned against Russian sabotage in the UK, causing mayhem on our streets. And then last year, he kind of said the same thing, that we needed to be very careful of what Russia was doing. We've had a former head of MI6 on another radio station, the BBC, who have told the truth about this right now, in my view, saying this is all part of a bigger plot. Why? Putin is not winning the war in Ukraine. That is the fact. And if he's defeated in Ukraine, they'll come and get him in the Kremlin. So it's personal for Putin. And we need to ensure that we're doing things like boarding Russian vessels. You know, we're terribly pleased we did it. It should have been done years ago. These ships.
I don't listen. We'll get into a whole different sphere. But Anthony, I don't understand that yesterday, and I'm not conspiratorial. 2 months ago, the Attorney General Lord Hermer said, and I quote, "We can't board vessels in the Channel. It's against other countries' human rights." And yet, exactly 48 hours after our Prime Minister said there's no money for defence, suddenly we're boarding a ship out of nowhere and showing that we're strong. Sorry, well, that again, I'm
Jeremy,
cynical about.
If I may quickly intercede, it could well be that the answer to your question, which is why we're not being told this about this incident against Starmer, his car in his ex-house. The reason we're not being told is because actually right now we don't have the wherewithal to do the same back with interest to Putin. And that is what needs to be done. It needs to be done by the Ukrainians. They should send a few drones over at the Kremlin. Putin is lobbing Kiev all the time with missiles and drones. And the Ukrainians did have a good go at St. Petersburg, but they should take out the Kremlin with interest. That's the only way this is going to stop. Putin is losing. He is a loser. He's a mafia-type boss, and it's not acceptable in this country.
Anthony, so good to have you on, my friend. Always an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Professor Anthony Glees, security and intelligence expert, 7 minutes to 9. Morning, Rob.
Good morning, Jez. Good morning, everybody. I just cannot bring myself to be anything other than so sad and upset this morning. I'm reading that story and looking at that beautiful little baby Preston and what these two animals have done to that child. Oh, for years now, the social services in this country, they allowed them to be molested. For years and years, it's come out that their jobs were being done improperly. This young'un had gone into hospitals, he'd been seen by people, he had everything the matter with him that should have set the alarm bells ringing. But no, they couldn't bring themselves, could they? Because of one thing or another that never adds up, to go and do something about his situation and think about that poor little child born into a life where he had to be adopted. He gets taken away by a couple of men and this happens to him. And nobody went to his aid. And I'm sick to death of seeing this sort of stuff. It's outrageous. Don't tell me that the death penalty shouldn't be brought back for people like this. For all that time they did this to sexually molested him, their own child, that they fought because there were a couple of men, they fought to have a child, they got him, they did this to him. My day is going to be full of thoughts of that poor little child. I'm so angry about this. It is absolutely outrageous. Everybody who was involved in this should be sacked or taken to court and sent to prison. He lost his life in the most horrendous way. It's made me sick to the bone. Oh, honestly, I hope the day gets better because this has just set me off on the wrong foot altogether. Peace and love to everyone, apart from them monsters.
Couldn't agree with you more, Rob, in Newcastle. That's the terrible story in the front of the Sun. Murdered by twisted dad and failed by the system, baby Preston Davey. I can't. I'll get into trouble. Let's do what we should do at 5 to 9. Let's talk sport. Tomorrow, England kick off against Croatia in the World Cup. The Sun has it all. Talk Sport, our sister station as well. Push the button, Big M.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From the Sun.
Let's say a very good morning to Martin Blackburn, football writer for the current band, The Sun. It's everywhere. Oh, how are you, Martin? Are you excited?
Of course, Jeremy. Yeah, we're nearly there, aren't we? We've had to watch a lot of other teams start off, make their debuts in the competition, and England are finally coming around tomorrow night. So a lot of chat on the back pages about who might play in Thomas Tuchel's first team.
It doesn't matter who plays. We'll do okay. We'll get to... my problem is I want to believe. Listen, I have to. I'm a West Ham fan. I want to believe that we'll do all right. And then I get into the whole spirit. I get the flag, the things hanging out the car. I get the beers in. Yeah. And then we fail and everybody feels so goddamn miserable. But listen, I think they've got as good a chance as they've ever got. I like the fact that Tuchel is Tuchel and he's taken the team. And I think, you know, you just have to... I mean, you look at yesterday... I had down Spain as sort of joint favourites with France. Cape Verde, after all that discussion about, they've increased it to 48 teams, this is rubbish. What an amazing result. 0-0 with the world champions.
It was a great result, Jeremy, and a great story. It wasn't a great game, but it was a great story, certainly. And it just goes to show, you know, if England don't beat Croatia tomorrow night, I'm sure the country will be in despair. But... quite often in that opening game, you know, Spain, when they won it in 2010, they had a bad start. Argentina, 4 years ago, lost to Saudi Arabia. So these things can happen. But having said that, Spain weren't great, Jeremy, yesterday. And they're one of the favourites for the competition. So if that's the yardstick, then England might be looking at that and thinking, you never know, this could be the one for us.
You've got to peak at the right time. We haven't got much time. Everything you need genuinely to do with the wonderful World Cup on the back of the Sun. Martin, I ask the Sun reporter every morning, and I always get an honest response. Yeah. Can England win the World Cup?
I'm going to say no, Jeremy, but I'm hoping so, obviously.
You're like me. Thank you, my friend. And don't forget our sister station, the amazing TalkSport, the only place you need for live radio sport. Everything you need to do with this World Cup, kicking off England-Croatia tomorrow. It's almost 9.
I'm genuinely disgusted when people continue to point out failure after failure after failure and do not provide balanced analysis of the deliverable of services like the police. What I don't see from reform is them standing next to some of these people that they continually criticise and saying, actually, they've made a mistake here. There is a requirement for a review and we must get through it. But I'd also like to thank the police for doing an excellent job at stopping the riots, doing this, breaking this criminal gang, doing the hard work they do day in, day out. And I think we take it for granted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
The video footage was so deeply shocking, the behaviour of the police disgraceful and stupid, and it shows something deeply rotten in our society.
Enough of anti-white prejudice. A promotion of the idea that white lives matter just as much as black lives.
Nigel Farage said today it should be white lives matter. Are you making the same point?
It should be everyone matters.
And when you hear Henry's faltering voice, losing its tone, losing its volume as his life ebbs away, you're not going to say, I don't think so, mate. And when somebody tells you they've been stabbed, your first job as a police officer is the preservation of life.
Henry was pulled across the gravel, his hands forced behind his back, and he was placed in handcuffs. Instead of being treated as a dying victim, police formally arrested Henry for assault and read him his rights. That was the last thing he heard.
I do want to address the Henry Novak case and what has happened since I was on air yesterday. Because after his son's murderer was sentenced on Monday, Mark Novak said of his son, "We do not want his death to be used to create further division, hatred or tension. We want his story to help make our streets safer for everyone." Since then, Nigel Farage, the Tories and pretty much everyone else, people like me, we're all being accused of stoking that very division, hatred and tension that Mark Novak talked about.
If the public lose trust in being treated fairly by the police, can he take some action, end this divisive practice of two-tier policing and make sure that all British citizens are treated the same?
Mr. Speaker, I don't believe there's two-tier policing in this country. His response has been to appeal for rage. Rage. That's his response to a father who's lost his son and asked for that not to happen. Exploiting this tragedy to create grievance and division would be wrong in any circumstances, but to do it when the family are expressly saying, please don't, is unforgivable.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends, and welcome along. Just gone 9 on the home of Common Sense Talk. Of course, it's where the nation comes to speak about the day's news, whatever you want to talk about in the next hour. 0344 499 1000. Loads of people lined up to come on. Also, your text messages 87222. What are you waking up to? Well, front page of The Sun, just the most appalling story. We've talked about it all morning. Little Preston Davey, betrayed, beaten, burnt, sexually abused by his two gay parents. Not that that matters, although it didn't matter in my head until Sarah Pochin, Reforms MP, said to me an hour ago, maybe the fact that social services missed on 8 occasions when this poor little kid was taken to hospital, is that a point? Is it a box-ticking exercise? Whatever it is, whether it's social services, local government, it is a disgrace. And I, like millions of other people in this country, do not want to hear vacuous words and an inquiry. We want action, because when a kid, Rob's message from Newcastle before, just so honest. John in the Dales says, I listened to Robbie, brought tears to my eyes with his passion and anger. I'm sure everyone agrees with him. This is an absolute stain on our society, and it happens again and again. It happened with Baby P, and nothing matters. And then you talk, people come on and they talk about capital punishment, and the do-gooders go, ooh, 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 right? Those people don't deserve any liberty whatsoever. So many of you angry this morning, and understandably so. The other story that's really doing the rounds. Yesterday, we discovered that Keir Starmer, the firebombing of his house and car, Russia was behind it. 2 men were found guilty of conspiring to carry out the arson attacks. The court heard they were recruited online by a Russian-speaking man with a Spanish name called El Money. And then they were paid. They were caught, and then Russia started the conspiracy theory that it was revenged by 2 Ukrainian rent boys. Now, there's a couple of things here that don't seem to add up, and this is, well, 3. One is, our Prime Minister is firebombed his home and his car by a foreign nation, and we don't do anything about it? Why? Question mark. I mean, that's, yeah. Secondly, why would Russia want to unseat Starmer? He's the most unpopular Prime Minister. We don't have a Navy, an Army, an Air Force. You can just come in willy-nilly, and if you commit a crime, he'll get your human rights law to say sorry for it. And thirdly, I just don't understand how, in any way, right, that is not debated, that somebody hasn't gone, hold on a minute. So I've got a suggestion, because if you look, we're not showing it now. Oh, we're showing other stuff. But at some point, that'll be when the piece of scum was arrested over baby Preston Good. At some point, you'll see some... Oh, it's the Ukrainian thing. Oh, right, OK. At some point, you will see pictures of the G7 summit. Now, as you see pictures of the leaders of G7 sat round the breakfast table, Trump isn't talking to Starmer. We'll get the feedback in a minute. But one thing just struck us during the break. Zelensky's there as a guest. So why doesn't Starmer go up to Zelensky and go, can you explain to me why 2 gay Ukrainian rent boys tried to firebomb my house? I mean, that might be a good idea. Not think he'll say it, though. 0344 499 1000. Let's say a very good morning. First up, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, Nigel Evans. Good morning.
Jeremy, how are you doing?
Well, I'm going to start with a question for you, because Theresa came on at 6:20. You promised to contact the Speaker about a minute's silence for Henry Novak. Matt Vickers wrote a letter. Have you done what you said you'll do, Evans?
No, I did straight away, and he thanked me for bringing it to his attention. I suspect, though, because I don't think it happened, did it?
No.
I suspect what happened was that the father of Henry really was asking for no more division, trying to calm it all down. I mean, the dad was incredibly dignified, I've got to say, following the murder of his son in the way that he responded. I certainly wouldn't have been as calm if I'd been him.
I hope that there is at some point something, though, that crosses the political divide for the sake of that kid, because I don't think that showing respect for that young kid can be divisive. But I appreciate and thank you for that. My friend, I know that we didn't really think this was going to be the main news story of the day on the front of the Sun, the tragedy of Preston Davey. You, like me, will feel utter betrayal and abhorrence. Yep. And I don't want, as I've said, I don't want hand-wringing and an inquiry. I want something to be done. I don't understand how a kid of months old can go to hospital 8 times with broken bones and internal injuries and people don't do anything about it, Nigel.
Alarm bell should have been ringing throughout when that happened. It happened again and again, and you would have thought that the social services would have stepped in. Yeah, there has to be an inquiry, Jeremy, to work out who missed this on their watch. And
capital punishment in your mind ever or not?
Well, no, I used to be in favour. In fact, I have actually voted for the return of capital punishment in Parliament. But the reality is, I do believe in locking people up for the rest of their lives.
Mike Neville said it, life means life, but you know as well as I do, Vikram Digwa, that killed Henry Novak, got 21 years. He'll do 15. He'll be out at 36 for taking somebody's life. People won't accept that much longer, bud.
No, that's right. No, the tipping point has been reached, as I've said on your show almost every week. The tipping point has been reached. And when you have somebody like this who... And I'm really pleased that this sentence is being reviewed. As far as I'm concerned, he should never leave prison.
Completely agree. It's that's all right. I thought you were telling me off. It's just we don't seem to. I don't know. Stories like this, baby, just bring it home to us. I think sometimes about how, you know, an 18-year-old dying on the streets, that baby, it's not that we've gone soft, but we've just gone so far the other way. Somebody said something to me about, it was Sarah Pochin. I'd love your response to this. She said, she just came into her head. She said, I'm not saying this is the case, but this baby that was murdered, right, this was 2 gay men. She said, I wonder, a bit like Callacane was released because the authorities didn't want to leave, you know, a black person in a mentally ill hospital because he could be deemed as racist. Do you think that this wasn't looked into because it was 2 gay men adopting a baby? Serious question.
Well, that should be inquired into, and if that is the case, then that is appalling.
Yeah.
As we've always said, that justice should be blind, and it should be blind to whether people, what colour they are, what religion they are, and indeed what sexuality they are, what gender they are. Justice has got to be blind. You've got to carry the people with you. And if they think that somehow or other it's being distorted simply because of somebody's colour, somebody's race, religion, or gender, or sexuality, then I think people would be absolutely appalled for all those reasons.
Completely agree with you. Shall I bring Stringer in, or are we doing them separately? You know old Graham Stringer, don't you? I'm going in the middle and hello, Stringer, Graham Stringer, Labour, Blackley and Middleton. Say hello to your old mucker Nigel Farage. Nigel.
Morning, Nigel. Morning.
That was a joke. I did it deliberately. Nigel Evans. How are you, Graham?
Good, thank you.
So, both of you, I want to do this. We'll move on from the dreadful story of the baby. We'll move on to your favourite subject, Graham, Keir Starmer. And you've both been in politics and Parliament for almost 100 years together, so you'll be able to respond to this. Can you please explain to me, yesterday, we discovered that Russia was behind the firebombing of a house and car linked to our Premier. 2 men were found guilty of conspiring to carry out the arson attacks. The court heard they were recruited online by a Russian-speaking man with a Spanish name, El Money, who paid them, dead straight face, Jez, who paid them, and then the Russians started a conspiracy theory that this was indeed 2 Ukrainian rent boys. So to both of you, and we'll start with Graham, I just want to ask you on a serious note, our Prime Minister is attacked by a foreign state, firebombed his property, and we've said and done nothing. No wonder the conspiracy theorists are lined up, Graham.
I do think that's extraordinary. I suppose I don't know when the firebombing took place, but for a long period since then, this would have been sub judice. So we wouldn't have been able to talk about it in the Commons or elsewhere. Now, it is out in the public, I think we can talk about it. And going back to something you said previously, I think it is quite understandable that the Russians want to attack Keir Starmer, because whatever his failings, which are too many in my opinion, he did lead the campaign to get more money to Ukraine to resist the Russian invasion. He was the most prominent European who was saying that, so the Russians will be resentful of him.
I'm not
but
really.
Yes, of course.
You might be right. I look at it in a slightly different way, which is if I was Russia, I'd be very happy with the man who's got no navy, no army, no air force. His borders are wide open, and he's hated by his people. But I could be missing the point. Nige, can I bring you in on what Graham said? I mean, the conspiracy theorists have had a field day, OK? But can you imagine if Mar-a-Lago was firebombed? Or the Elysee? I'm being completely serious. No wonder people are jumping up and down. This is absolutely outrageous, isn't it?
Yeah, and I would have assumed now that you would want to call in the Russian ambassador to talk with them, to basically, give them a ticking off. I mean, as much as he possibly can do. Yeah, you're quite right. It does seem as if now these people have been convicted. We need some answers. The Russians are denying it, by the way. And I was reading an analysis this morning that said that it seemed to be that the guy behind it, El Money, is the son of a former Russian diplomat in Denmark. And it seems as if
he's called Big Money, isn't he? I'm sorry, that was ludicrous and rubbish.
He may be sort of a rogue trader, if you like. He's doing it without instructions from the Kremlin, and maybe that is the case. But we need to find out. And if it is the Russian state behind this, then we need to be more than concerned that they're trying to destabilize the prime minister of our country. As much as he may be disliked by the population here, you don't allow foreign state actors to come in and firebomb 2 of your homes and 1 of your cars.
Completely agree. Graham, can we talk a little bit more about Starmer? We've talked this morning about this social media ban. I don't want to go into too much detail, but we've talked about it all morning. Under 16s yesterday, sort of a split. Many people supporting it on the Tory side and across the political divide. Others will jump up and down and say it should be more parental control, and this is the Labour Party trying to control the state. Loads of people, though, agreeing that this is him trying to rush something through to create a legacy. But his legacy's set, isn't it, Graham?
I think so. Can I just say a couple of sentences on what you and Nigel were saying about Russia?
Yeah.
I think, apart from the firebombing of the Prime Minister's front door, I think we are at war with Russia, China, North Korea and Iran. They're attacking us in cyberspace all the time. We're spending billions on protecting ourselves. So the idea that we're not at war with them, it's just not tanks and aeroplanes. They're constantly attacking us on a number of fronts. On the issue of the social media ban, I'm in favour. There's a lot of damage being done to young people, but I'm not in favour of rushing in when we don't know if the technology for doing it exists. We know that in Australia it has not been as effective as it might be. There's 75% of people below 16 who are still using it. I think we need better consultation. I understand why people have rushed it. Because they're saying people are being damaged now, we need to do something. But there's no point doing something if you don't know whether you actually can achieve the ends that are quite desirable.
You both, and I meant this respectfully, been around a while. Many are saying that Thursday, and we will play a list of candidates, the Makerfield by-election, we do the job correctly. They say that this is the most important by-election for many, many years. Labour, being flawed nationally, has a chance through Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester Mayor, who apparently is now the darling of the Labour Party and is going to save the country. He's made no secret that if he wins, and the polls say he will, he'll ride on a white horse to London, get rid of Starmer, become the Prime Minister and take the country to the left. Reform seemed to have stalled a little bit. There's talk that Restore under Rupert Lowe, that they've got traction locally. They were attacked by the media yesterday, neo-Nazis, blah, blah, blah. Both of you, I want to ask you one thing as old parliamentarians. Respectful, not old. Is it right that potentially 76,000 people in Makerfield, Wigan, Greater Manchester, Nigel, can pick the next Prime Minister of this country while the remaining 70 million of us don't have a say?
Yeah, it does sound remarkable, I have to say. I don't know, Graham, whether you've been up to Makerfield, but I've been up there twice. I was up there over the weekend. I came across a phenomenon which I've never come across before. And this wasn't just the odd one. This was over 8 houses where I got the response, we would love to vote Tory. We like Michael Winstanley. We think Kemi's great, but you're not going to win. So we are switching to vote for Andy to prevent Reform from winning. And I never thought I would hear that in a million years. And it's a phenomenon. It is actually, and I was told by one of the other canvassers who'd been working there for several days that this is what was happening, and he was hearing it all the time. So my prediction, Graham, is that Andy's going to win. I don't know about what the margin is. And then, of course, it goes on to answer your question, Jeremy, is what's going to happen next? And I've likened it to the hitman phoning his victim and saying, how would you like to be taken out? Are you going to walk out of 10 Downing Street, or are you going to be dragged? Because I assume that Andy would be able to get his 81 signatures, Graham, within the Labour Party. You'll know way better than me. 81 is a heck of a high bar. The Tories, as you know, we put a revolving door on number 10 when we were there. We made it really easy to get rid of a Tory leader. The Labour Party made it difficult. Do you think Andy could get his 81 signatures, Graham?
I don't think he'd have any difficulty getting his 81 signatures, but it's not the people in this constituency who are going to choose the next Prime Minister. It will be, as is the basis of our constitution, a majority in the House of Commons. Somebody can only become Prime Minister if they've got the support of a majority in the House of Commons. Whether or not, if Andy wins the by-election, he will become leader, I think there is some doubt about that. He's contradicting himself a number of times on policy objectives in this campaign. I don't think he's covered himself in glory in that sense. And there may well be other challenges. I mean, West Streeting has said openly that he will challenge. Al Cairns might challenge. There could be the normal parliamentary process of choosing people who will stand.
Can I ask you a couple of direct questions, Graham? You don't have to answer. Will you be one of the 81 signing for Andy Burnham?
No.
I'm going to make a prediction to both of you. I've got no experience. I know enough, though, that when things seem to be a sure thing in politics, something happens. And I wouldn't say... I'm not interested in Wes Streeting. Today in The Sun, he says we should embrace the flag. He's been in government for 2 years saying it's divisive and far right. I'd keep an eye on John Healey. That's what I'd do. People will laugh at me.
I mean, you've asked direct questions. If John Healey was standing, and I'd have a conversation with him, and I would almost certainly support him. He did the principal thing in resigning. He's not full of himself. He's competent. I think he would make a good, understated, but effective Prime Minister if he was willing to stand. I know John quite well.
And that's interesting. People will think we set that up. Graham and I have never spoken about that. It's just that I see it all. I see Streeting changing every day, his position. I see Andy Burnham peacocking it around Manchester, and they're all running up there and going, oh, Andy, you're great, but you failed twice to be elected leader. Let's just... And Graham Stringer, a Labour MP, makes salient points. He's contradicted himself. Leave the EU, join the... Pay the WASPy women, I haven't got enough. You can't do it because people remind. He might well win on Thursday, but it's bigger than that. And then you think about all the politics that happens, Nigel. You've got that look on your face. I've seen it a million times with the Tories. Ed Miliband. And then you just look at somebody like Healey and you think, distinguished, I think one of the most competent in that cabinet, fell on his sword, I don't think out of personal greed, but because on principle. And I think that takes a lot. I really do, Nigel. Would you agree?
I think John Healey is one of those guys on the Labour side who gets on equally well with members of the Conservative Party, Liberals. He's somebody who, when he says something, he doesn't say it for effect or for window dressing. He actually genuinely believes it. And all of us believe that defence of the realm is the major thing for any government. And he fell on his sword simply because he couldn't get the deal that he needs to ensure that this country is best protected. I think if I was, and of course I've been in this position a lot of times when we were changing our leader, you look at who, not only who is going to deliver, but who's going to deliver for you too. Because you're 2 and a bit years off the next general election. John Healey gets it. Is he in the best position to ensure that I, as a Labour MP, will keep my seat? There's going to be a lot of those questions being asked, particularly by MPs who won their seats 2 years ago, and they've never been Labour before. And, you know, you've got to look at a bit of self-interest, I suspect, on the Labour benches as to who's going to best deliver for them in the general election in 2029, if that's when it comes.
Finally, great to have you both on. Graham, we've talked about Starmer being a dead man walking. We've heard that Wes Streeting will stand if Andy Burnham wins on Thursday. Do you expect the go button to be pushed on a leadership campaign as soon as possible?
I think that Andy would disappoint those people who support him if he didn't make an early bid to get those 81 votes. So I think there will be quite a quick, I don't know whether it'll be on next Monday or whether he'll wait 2 or 3 weeks, but he's created huge expectations, and there is a feeling amongst the people Nigel was talking about, which I don't share incidentally, that Keir Starmer is unpopular, Andy is popular, ergo we will go for Andy. I think once the debate and the discussion starts and we go through those policy issues, they may well, the members of the Parliamentary Labour Party may well choose somebody else to look after the country's interests and their interests as parliamentary candidates in the next general election.
Well, I was going to say, just to finish with both of you, Andy Burnham, from what he said, makes no secret of the fact that he will go further left than Keir Starmer has gone, and you have to ask yourself, whether you get a thumping majority or not, whether that is going to be palatable to the British people for 3 more years. You two are like a good comedy duo. We'll have to get you in panto. I love it. Graham Stringer, Labour for Blackley and Middleton, thank you. And the legend that is Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, new book on the way for Christmas 2026. What is it, 9:25? We're live across the United Kingdom. So much to talk about. The death of poor baby Preston. We're talking about the social media ban. We're talking about Starmer's car and house being fired bombed, and absolutely nobody's done anything. A rogue state tries to blow up the property of our Prime Minister. That's fair enough. Sean, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. Sean from Northampton here. When it comes to the death penalty, and there is zero doubt of guilt, when it comes to people like Digwa, Huntley, Sutcliffe, Brady, Fred West, the death penalty should be an option. I think it's disgusting that those people were kept in prison at a massive cost to the general public for years and years and years when they had no right to live. It's as simple as that. Good show, mate. Carry on.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. TalkSport have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Of course, whenever we mention the Makerfield by-election on Thursday, rules within broadcasting tell us that we should absolutely, correctly and quite rightly give you the list of all the candidates. This is a public service announcement after Evans and Stringer mentioned it. This is your list of candidates for Thursday. Jake Austin stands for the Liberal Democrats, Count Binface for his own party, Count Binface Party, Andy Burnham, of course, the Labour Party, Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party, John Dyer for the Independents, Ed Gemmell, the Climate Party, Paul Gould, the Independent, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official monster raving loony party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK, Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, the Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin the EU, and Michael Stanley, the Conservative Party. That's your list of candidates. Thursday, of course, the Makerfield by-election, the build-up, the day itself. No, we wanted to talk about it. The votes are taking place, but all the action Friday morning starting at 6 o'clock with Mark Dolan on Talk Breakfast. Let's say good morning to Michelle. Morning, Michelle.
It's Michelle again from Rutland. I used to work years ago for a family support organisation. We used to work with really vulnerable families. And there was lots of abuse and sexual abuse and homelessness, you name it. And we'd support the social services. But whenever we'd get cases that of really, really vulnerable children or teenagers or toddlers, we'd report them to social services and we'd hold meetings. But if social services went there 2 or 3 times and they couldn't get any answer or the door was shut in their face, they'd close the case. They're absolutely useless, and I've found this so many times. In my view, social services are absolutely overpaid puppets. Thank you.
The thing is, and this might surprise a few people, Rob left a voice note earlier about how sick to the stomach he feels. I'm exactly the same. Those two people, scumbags, whatever you want to call them, in my mind, I would have capital punishment. That's my opinion, not Talk's. I've listened to all the people say that makes you as bad as them. What I want to say about social workers won't be everybody's cup of tea. Let me read you this from Gina Daly. My grandson is in a care home as he's severely disabled and needs specialist care. My daughter still has lots of involvement with him and has had a social worker for years. This is a normal procedure when you have a severely disabled child. However, none of the social workers stay long in the job. She must have had nearly 20 social workers over the past 6 years. The pressure of the job, in my opinion, seems to be so great that they don't stay. The new social worker comes in, doesn't know the case or the family properly. The process starts again. This leads to awful cases being missed. I don't think Gina's making an excuse. I think she's telling a story. We appreciate that. I would say this, right? There are loads of stories. Think back 20 years to Baby P. It makes us all sick to the stomach. There'll be an inquiry, a lot of hand-wringing, and nothing changes. Is there an argument, as somebody said earlier, to centralise a government department for social workers, take it out of councils? I don't know. There is always incompetence. The people that miss this should be prosecuted and jailed, my opinion. However, please let's not forget there are hundreds, if not thousands, of social workers across this country who are doing a bloody fantastic job, who don't get any credit, whose jobs, when they make successful interventions, don't see the light of day, because we're only going to hear, quite rightly, the really appalling stories. And you might be surprised that I would say that. I have a little bit of experience, which I'm not going to go into, with a family member, and they were astonishing. But this makes me sick to the stomach, and I jail the social workers. But I do think it's fair to say, it is both ways. And you might disagree with that, but there we go. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Let's say a very good morning to the former advisor to the UK Board of Trade, incoming Director General, this is very important, he got more titles than the Queen used to have, incoming Director General of the Institute of Economic Affairs, independent peer, Lord Daniel Hannan. Good morning, sir. Oh, Lord. Morning, Lord. How are you?
Good morning to you, Jeremy. Always nice to catch up.
An absolute pleasure. Daniel, I want to talk about this astonishing story, I mean, about Starmer. I started off very differently with this story, and then it sort of developed. Yesterday morning, we discovered that Russia was behind the firebombing of a house and a car linked to our Prime Minister. Yesterday, 2 men were found guilty of conspiring to carry out the arson attacks. The court heard that they were recruited online by a Russian-speaking fixer with a Spanish name, who promised them payment, and then the Russians started the conspiracy theory that it was revenge by 2 Ukrainian rent boys. Whilst the court case was sub judice, none of this came out. Apparently, I'm not on X. There was lots of stuff. People were flying around the place. I just have 3 questions for you, a respected man. Our Prime Minister is allegedly attacked by another nation, and nothing is done and nothing is said. That's extraordinary, isn't it, Daniel?
It is. First of all, it's a reminder about not believing every online rumour. I bet you had the same as I did because you're a media person. Your unpolitical friends will have said, why is no one telling the truth about these Ukrainian rent boys? And you will have said what I've said, which is because there's zero evidence for that. And they'll say, oh, come on, everyone knows. And you'll go, what do you mean everyone knows? Well, this guy in the pub told me, right? So point number 1, just don't believe these ludicrous rumours. But point number 2, the much more serious one, this is a reminder that Russia regards the United Kingdom as a hostile power. The idea that we have just sort of blundered into the war in Ukraine for no good reason, we poked the bear or whatever, requires us to look away from all the acts of provocation that we've had from Russia going back over decades. Buzzing our airspace, launching cyber attacks, harassing our diplomats, engaging in targeted attacks on our businesses. So, you know, we were not sitting there minding our own business. We had, sorry, they were not sitting there minding their own. We had the Skripal attacks. Yep. We had the attack all the way back in the 90s on Litvinenko. Murders of people under the Queen's peace. This is normally an act of war. So it's just a reminder that Russia has for a long time treated the United Kingdom as an enemy belligerent.
I mean, I get that, and you're absolutely right. But conversely, I want to say, strangely, Keir Starmer is so ineffectual. We have open borders, no military. We don't have the standing that we had. We seem to cram our country with human rights lawyers who make exceptions to perpetrators of crime and leave victims hanging. That I would have thought the Kremlin would have gone, do you know what? Better to have the man that's in charge there. So you say we're a hostile state, maybe that, but he's not exactly the sort of conviction politician in the mould of a Thatcher or a Blair who would actually, because he said nothing. And of course, Daniel, I have had those conversations, right? But you do understand that the fact there's been deafening bloody silence merely exacerbates those comments. Of course it does, because people are going, why isn't he saying anything? Why? It's outrageous. It's extraordinary, isn't it? It is extraordinary.
Well, I think there is such a thing as due process. There's such a thing as sub judice, and I think I'm not going to criticise Starmer over that, but I do think you're right on the issue of how we have made ourselves vulnerable through open borders. Who knows who is coming in? And I'm not just going to blame Starmer for this. This goes back a long way under parties of different stripes. So there's been a real problem. We also have, I think, quite an issue with the openness of our media and our communication system to surveillance and espionage. It's quite striking. You know, we had the news yesterday that we're going to have, in the name of having this ban on social media for kids, we're going to have effectively a kind of digital ID for the whole country, because there's going to be age verification for all of us. In order to have the tech necessary to enforce that ban, there's going to need to be constant surveillance on the output of phones, on the cameras, on the files. And that, of course, again, makes you very vulnerable to hostile actors. I mean, there's a reason that the journalists who are going into Number 10 to talk about this social media ban are required to leave their phones on the way in. There's a reason that military people don't take their phones into meetings. A phone is a device that can be used by malign actors. And I think we need to be very careful, for the sake of chasing a headline about social media, not to open ourselves to massive new espionage and destabilization from hostile and belligerent enemies.
Where do you stand on that? Just very briefly, big debate this morning about the social media thing. Starmer yesterday announcing the ban on under-16s, and I have to say, you know, I get it as a parent. I absolutely get it, and there are many times when I've gone, oh, have the pad for half an hour because I need to have a shower. But I get that, because certainly it was brought home to me this morning on the front of the Sun, that appalling murder. There are people out there trolling, grooming and doing terrible things, but I'm not sure how you police it. And also, of course, you know, because the people have woken up, that the minute you talk about Apple and Google and the need for age verification, people will jump up and down and say, well, I'm just being made more accountable. They're trying to get more and more information on me. This is absolutely outrageous. The state's taking over. I'm a human being. What's happened to free speech? So you're constantly trying to balance, aren't you, really?
Look, I bet you that almost every parent listening to you now will have your frustrations and mine about kids spending too much time on screen, right? I mean, who doesn't?
But would you also, as a parent like me, acknowledge that we've all gone, have your iPad for half an hour? Because I'm very honest like that.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who said never ever give your kids your iPad has never moved house, right? I mean, there are times when you have to.
Or had a kid. Would I just respectfully say had a child? Because there is a moment, of course, but there's a bigger issue, isn't there?
Yes, I mean, look, so I believe that children are spending way too much time, and actually adults are spending way too much time on screen. I think doom scrolling is bad for you. I think it makes you unhappy. I think it gives you insomnia. I think it can give you anxiety. Certainly it makes you more listless, and it's time wasting. But it does not follow from that you give these huge powers to the government to regulate everybody's online use. This is primarily up to parents to control, and also to a degree up to schools. I'm very strongly in favour of schools taking a tougher line on phones on school premises, and I think most of them are doing that. I've noticed a real change. So our kids, Jeremy, they span a great age range. Our eldest is 24. They were the first generation to get iPhones. They all got iPhones when they were 10.
Yeah.
Our youngest is 9. If I look at the difference in attitude, like when our eldest was small, the schools were saying, get online, this is your future, this is the world you're growing up in.
They were sending lessons on their iPads, and I'm this old git who's going, what, Alice? Look, Dad, they've sent my lessons on my iPad. Well, what about marking? They do it on an iPad. I'm like, what? What happened to a report book? Absolutely.
And that's because we did not know, and this isn't about sort of dodgy websites, this is just about the more quotidian but serious problem of screen addiction and how it makes the rest of the world look very dull when you've spent too much time looking at those screens. People are much more aware of that now. Yeah. And when I look at the way the mums of my 9-year-old's friends are talking to each other, you know, let's all agree not to give them phones at all because it wouldn't be fair for only one of them not to have one while all their friends do. You know, there's just so much more awareness. So I don't think you need the heavy hand of government to come in with these massive regulations, with all the privacy issues and all the security issues that involves, when we have schools and parents already waking up to the problem. Now, yeah, there are always going to be some bad parents, right? There are always going to be some hard cases. And even the best parents, as you say, we're all sometimes going to say, look, for the rest of this car journey, there's your...
Just shut up!
Right. But the fact that there are some bad parents and some lapses is not a good argument for giving these huge powers to governments. Governments generally do things quite badly, right? We know that. I mean, that they weren't very good at installing telephones. They weren't very good at running airlines. They weren't very good at building cars. They won't be very good at enforcing this kind of healthy phone use. That is up primarily to families and schools.
Could not agree more. Listen, it's always great to have you on. I love your honesty. Just one before you go. The 21-year prison sentence, Daniel, handed to Henry Novak's murderer, Vikram Digwa, is to be given to the Court of Appeal, referred to the Court of Appeal. Prosecutors have argued for a 25-year starting point. My frustration here is, and it drives me to the point of insanity, and I'm looking at the story about that young boy murdered as well. Vikram Vikram Digwa takes Henry Novak's life is 18. This bloke is 21 years of age. Even if they give him 25 years, he'll get off after about 18. Before he's 40, he'll be able to spend about another 40 years on this planet. Why the hell does life not mean life anymore? I think it's a disgrace, as do many people watching and listening to this, my friend.
And, of course, it does mean that for Henry Novak's family, the rest of their lives. This is, and, you know, you listen to any bereaved parent, they'll all say the same thing. There doesn't come a point when it gets easier. You know, it's a life sentence. So there is a kind of imbalance there. But you know, it was one of those things when I was too young to remember this, but when I've read the debates about the abolition of capital punishment, it was sold on the basis that life would mean life, and that lapsed almost immediately. So I think there was an element of bad faith.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. If you take somebody's life, you might be in the capital punishment camp, you might be in the life is life, but if you get out after 18 years, I just think that sends the most appallingly weak message. Daniel, it's always an absolute pleasure. How's the new role going? IEA? Big boss?
Most prestigious and oldest established free market think tank in the UK, and we're going to be the people who are out there making the argument for limited government, more competitiveness, lower taxes and freedom. That's what we all need. More
and I'm impressed because you've got a jacket and tie on, sir, up and at it by 9 o'clock. Lord Daniel Hannan, thank you so much indeed. Great to have you on the show. 17 minutes to 10 o'clock. Still to come. We can't do a week without her. I see her as a sort of... No, I'm not going to say. Angela Levin, legendary royal broadcaster. What's she going to come out with? That before 10 o'clock. Julia at 10, Ian at 1, and Kevin sounding great on drive time from 4 o'clock this afternoon. Shirley, good morning.
Good morning, Jezza. It's Shirley in the Cotswolds. Jezza, I don't want to bash all gay parents, but I'm afraid when you have carried a baby for 9 months and given birth, there's something that kicks in, an instinct, and I'm not sure where two men get that instinct from that have just had a newborn handed over to them. I've witnessed it. We were at a restaurant sitting outside and it was cold, and I decided that we would ask if we could have a table inside. There were a couple of gay guys with a newborn baby sitting outside smoking and chatting with their friends. The newborn was in a pram and they took it out, one of them took it out of the pram, and they had no idea how to hold a newborn, holding its little neck while it was, they were sitting with it on the lap and its little neck was flopping around. It wasn't dressed suitably. It was a cold, chilly evening and it didn't have anything on its head. It was just in a little bodysuit with no cardigan or anything on. And I was fuming. They just didn't have any idea. They weren't mistreating the child, but they just didn't have any maternal instinct, and that's what it comes down to. These social workers, I think it's a bit like the racist thing. They were frightened to say anything because it was two gay men. I can't listen to it. I can't read the newspapers, and when you're reporting on it, I have to switch it off. It's just heinous what they've done to this child. Thank you, Jezza. Bye.
I don't disagree that it's heinous, but I think there are two parts, if I'm being completely honest, Shirley, to what you said. I completely agree, and it was Sarah Pochin who threw this out. Let me read this from Wendy. Is there a chance that Jamie Varley wasn't properly scrutinised because the care workers were worried about how that would look if we dared to say that two men who are gay weren't up to it? You think back repeatedly to stories in the past and you think, yeah, maybe Calla Kane was allowed out, as I've said, to murder 3 people in Nottingham because the care worker didn't want to say, well, it's a bit racist to leave him in because he's black. That's possible. But I don't think, Shirley, with respect, it's possible to say that two gay men... I did the Jeremy Kyle show for 15 years, and there are plenty of women who are either completely incompetent and not maternal as well. I just think there are people who are not up to being parents, who don't have the right motivation, whether it's a skill or a skill that you learn or you learn from your family or your friends. I don't think that's down to gender. I do think that when there were issues raised, that perhaps the authorities could have been far more vigilant but maybe didn't for DEI concerns, but I don't know. 9:45 on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 12 minutes to 10 o'clock. Now, listen, tomorrow is all about the build-up to the World Cup. England kicking off their campaign tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Our sister station, TalkSport, has absolutely everything you need. There's people all over America from TalkSport. It's absolutely running the entire place. And guess what they've done with the World Cup in full swing? TalkSport and Meantime, okay, have combined to create. I mean, I don't drink lager, but apparently it's bloody brilliant. It's called So Good Lager. It's going to be poured in all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the United Kingdom. And you can find your nearest pub by visiting talksport.com/so good, which is the name of the lager. Do, of course. Do I have to do this? Please, you need to be 18 years or over and drink responsibly. But whatever your team of support, whatever your coverage of the World Cup, do me two favours. One, make it TalkSport. I mean, how can you see the rest of it rubbish? But also, you know, good time. So good. So Good Lager. Good time. Have a good time by drinking So Good Lager. Fantastic. Drink responsibly. Here's a woman who likes a lager or two. Angela Levin, good morning.
Good morning.
Good Lord, you've had a new haircut. What's happened? Look at that.
I haven't. I just put my hair behind my ears because it's suddenly gone curly. I've had it straight for about 20 years and it's suddenly gone curly.
Why? What's the reason for that, do you think? Do you think it's the beginning of is it going to fall out? Is it going to be, are you going to turn, is it going to become that curly? My little Rissy's got like curls. What's going to happen? You might have your head shaved, Angela. What's going on?
Nobody's going to shave it. I just had to get it out my way because I slept quite well and it was all flicked up and I thought you would make fun of me.
No,
so
I never make fun of you. I'm worried about you. I'm worried about you. I'm going to send my personal hairdresser around to do your head.
Oh, that's good.
How are things? How's everything going? What's happening in royal circles, my darling?
Well, I mean, they've been quite busy, haven't they? And yesterday was the King's Garter Day. And I think for the first time ever, and you know how much I love the Royals, as you do, but I thought, do we really need this?
Really?
And this was a sort of strange thing. I agreed with the Prince that it's a nonsense because they have all these people there. It's been going on since hundreds of years.
Yeah.
But they bring along oldest and most senior order of chivalry in Britain. And the ones that they are there today is Andrew Lloyd Webber, who was trying to stop drinking, Tony Blair,
he always drinks,
and John Major.
Oh, really?
I mean, that's really quite old, but I think we've left them behind a long time
Yeah, but the problem is, you see, now I'm going to talk about the ceremonial angle because I'm watching the coverage there. I saw some... You see, for me, one of the great things about the monarchy is the ceremonial brilliance. However, lots of people say, oh, we didn't afford that, we're past all that. And I sort of understand that as well. Did you see that Kate was booed?
Yes. Well,
Her and her kids were booed. And that, to me, is what I wanted to talk to you about, because whether you're a fan or you're not a fan, the shout for greater transparency, the fact is, whether they like it or not, and I'm a royalist, there are now, not millions, but there probably are millions of people in this country who are not turned on by the idea of monarchy as they used to be. And it's going to be a hard graft to get those people back, Angela.
Yes, but I think that there's a large group that go along and they're allowed to, and they just scream and shout. But what impressed me was that children were so well behaved. You know, it must be awful if they hear their mother being booed, they're being booed. I thought it was absolutely criminal for people to do that, for children and a family who's really trying to do their best. And I wondered when they were in there sitting along, being driven, why they looked a bit sort of serious.
Probably been told to look serious. Probably Louis been told not to mess about.
Well, he did mess about, actually, a bit later, which was quite funny. But I just thought people are so rude and vulgar now, and I thought it was a real shame.
Here's a question for you. Royal Ascot starts today. I used to go every year, and I got a great... You know the story about the old Duke of Edinburgh, don't you? The old man told me this many, many years ago.
No, go on, tell me a story.
So the Duke of Edinburgh will get into the carriage, having had lunch at Windsor Castle with the Queen, with his top hat and his tails and his trousers on, and he'd go all the way down the straight at Ascot, waving to all the peasants, like, oh, you're revolting. And then they get to the bit, and he'd get out, go upstairs, go down the stairs, round the back, get into a car and go back to the palace, because he hated Royal Ascot, but he always did the carriage drive with her. Did you know that?
No, I did not. Thank you for telling me.
Fact.
Yes, fact.
Absolute fact. Out of the carriage, into the car, back to Windsor Castle. Hated it. Royal Ascot, are you going? I thought that's why the hair had been done. I thought one of those fascinators was going on the Levin head.
No, a friend of mine came round to take my hat.
Oh.
He's got a really lovely hat.
Sorry, a man came round to borrow your hat?
No, someone came, a woman, a friend.
Oh, right.
Yes. And she likes all that. I'm not interested in horses, actually.
Oh.
And I wouldn't like to be bumped along and...
Well, that's another thing. Do you know another secret from the old man who shared many a carriage with the Queen Mother down the straight at Ascot? I said, what was it like? He said it made me feel car sick. Apparently it bounces around like absolutely anything. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. But I do know that Camilla has a bad back.
Oh.
And they've tried very hard to put the right cushions in that she doesn't really hurt herself, because it does.
Third world
up
problems.
and down.
Imagine going in a carriage down the centre of Ascot, pulled by horse-drawn carriages with soldiers in livery. It's bloody bad on the back, that, isn't it? I mean, that's, you know, I mean, forget the people that are out working. It's hard on the old back. I have to tell you, though, that's a hard graft for the royal family. 5 days of pressing the flesh and smiling and...
She loves it, and he likes it too. They love all the horses.
They've got some new horses, actually. They've bred their own horses. They do quite like it. Do we know who's going? Is Kate going? I guess she's going, isn't she?
If she were going, but she might not go today. She might go tomorrow, because she's been busy. You know, it just depends.
Is Meghan making a special appearance?
Is who?
Meghan. Do you think she'll turn up at who? Will she turn up at Royal Ascot? No.
No, nor will Harry.
No.
But he's making a lot of fuss about himself, and he's desperate. He's completely desperate, but that's his own fault, and so that's it, isn't it?
Honestly, it's the highlight of my week. It's like seeing my aunt or something. I love you. I'm going to come round to your house with some crumpets.
Aunt.
Well, it's a nice comment. I think you're classy and posh and mad, and I love you. Love you, Angela Levin. Thank you very much indeed. The King leading the first Gala Day procession, and of course Royal Ascot first day starting today, the biggest flat racing championship week, and that as well as the incumbent World Cup on TalkSport. Back in 3.
violence on the streets, there's no excuse for that, and if there are protests following this, I just hope that they remain non-violent. I mean, you can understand the community concerns after an attack like that.
People were saying all around the world, that's what British people now think. Have a listen to Rob from yesterday.
Morning, Jez. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here, literally like putting a wall in a sheep field.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Thank you so much, Adi, for all your messages. Reg says, I just noticed, and I'm very proud to say, a massive Union Jack flying off the M40 roundabout at Bicester. If I didn't read your message, I apologise. Good morning, Julia Hartley-Brewer.
Good morning. Love seeing a Union Jack. Love seeing an England flag.
Apparently, Wes Streeting thinks that we should...
I know.
Is he missing the limelight, or Wes, is he?
I don't understand, because he was trying to appeal to the left a little while ago. Now he's trying to go for... What? It shouldn't be right-wing to want to put your flag up.
And what about collective cabinet responsibility? Because you didn't argue for it whilst you were enjoying the trappings of office,
wouldn't know, because it would have been behind scenes if it was collective.
Yes. Here's the thing. Yes. That dreadful story about the baby...
I can't.
No, but Sarah Poacher made a really good point. Yeah. We could talk about social services and 8 failings. Do you think, a bit like Callaghan, allowed out because they were worried that it would be racist? Do you think that the authorities maybe went, 2 gay men, DEI, let's not do it?
I've got so many friends who tried to adopt